The meeting of the Public Safety Standing Committee is called to order at 6:30 p.m. Today is January the 30th, 2025. Roll call, Alderman Gay.
Present.
Alderwoman O'Neill, not here. Now let's us pause here for a moment of silence for 3 recent horrific events. For the victims and loved ones who have suffered from yesterday's airplane and helicopter tragedy in Washington, D.C., near Reagan Airport, and for our very brave first responders, including our own City of Annapolis Fire Department. For the victims of the devastating fires in California, and for those who suffered recently from the extreme reckless behavior by an individual who struck and killed some of New Orleans residents with his vehicle. Thank you. At this time, we will move to approve the agenda. Any changes to the agenda should be made here. We will be removing 03424 because it was not referred to the Public Safety Standing Committee. Can I get a motion?
What is 034?
It was something to do with
pulling Register now.
HR. I can't recall exactly what it is,
I guess so. Move.
but I looked it over. It was HR and something. IT, was it?
Changes to exempt service.
Changes to exempt service.
Okay. Yeah. So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, at this time, we're going to begin with the Mayor's Office, No Harm, NAM, and Annapolis United information. I see we have our Chief of Staff, Ms. Kate Pettit, as well as our African American Liaison Specialist, Mr. Atola Ajayi. Good evening. And thank you so much for the handout. Appreciate that.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members and everybody. Thank you for having us.
Good evening, Council Committee.
Can you start? You can get started. Thank you.
Okay. So, you all familiar with Uplift Annapolis? Sorry.
You have to tell us a little more about it. Can you speak up, please?
Just lead on this. I'll lead on this. So I'll just start a little preface to lead in, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tola, who manages all of the public safety and community outreach to the African American community as part of his African American liaison role in the Mayor's Office. I just want to point out the title of the presentation, Uplift Annapolis. It might be a new term for some. We operated, I think everybody knows, we operated under a banner once of One Annapolis. That title became problematic for some, a range of reasons, and this, in our internal planning and conversations in the team, and also as we plan to engage a new Hispanic liaison outreach officer, we've been talking about what all our programs mean, and the word uplift came up a lot. So it's a word we've been using internally to refer to all of our community outreach programs, and that's why you'll see it here tonight. Uplifting, the goal being to uplift residents who have not always had a voice or opportunity to participate or been equal access to services and to a range of resources or opportunities. And of course, part of that are our general liaison duties, but a lot of our programs have been targeted specifically to needs that relate directly to public safety. So having said that, I'm now going to turn over to Tola, who'll give a very quick rundown of the programs and what we've been doing over the past 6 months.
Take as much time as you need.
Okay. For clarity, is Uplift Annapolis the parent and No Harm and then the...
Yes, umbrella.
Okay, yeah. All right.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So we established Uplift Annapolis team values, community collaboration, community engagement, community services, and community surveying. Okay. No Harm is our violence prevention program, established in 2021. In 2023, we shifted the program to a more community-based school prevention, school-based prevention program, and that's when we partner with Annapolis United. I'll explain that later. Next slide. NAM is our substance abuse prevention program, specifically targeting African Americans who use opioids. Okay. Annapolis United is our citywide collaboration with the fire department, police department, OEM, and HACA and Rexham Park. And we, beyond what we do with the No Harm Partnership, there's also the Police Boxing League, Your Life Matters, OEM, ARPD. We want to establish some pop-up camps with them. In general, Robinwood outreach with all those organizations. With departments. So our 2024-2025 initiatives have been Annapolis School, a cluster of schools outreach options program, the Community Service and Resource Pop-Up Tour, the new Neighborhood Beautification Leadership Microgrant Initiative, our Robinwood Engagement, and Career College Exploration, and these two Youth Men Leadership Program and the Naptown CEO Makerspace will be launching in February and March. All the other programs were already active. Right. Annapolis Schools Outreach, we partner with Charting Careers and Pathways to Peace, as well as the Black Student Union, to do in-school mentoring, as well as the Career College Exploration Program funded by Annapolis United.
Mr. Jai, I have a question that probably the public would like to know. Can you explain about options, what that means and what it is?
I don't know that, sorry.
You good to answer that? So I'll jump in at this point. So we began the No Harm, when the No Harm program was restored in 2023, it began very much with a community violence prevention focus. We had, as you will no doubt recall, we had done a lot of work with the Anne Arundel County Health Department, and Tola had actually identified a violence interruption model called Cure Violence, and we were working with the County Health Department to identify where could that be delivered and trialled in the city. Based on the research, the joint research we did, and the evaluation of the needs that Cure Violence consultants made, the county has invested that program in Eastport, at Eastport Terrace and Harbour House, which was one of our communities most impacted by violence in recent years, particularly by gun violence. But we had also, that evaluation also identified the Robinwood community, and there was some significant crime data that indicated Robinwood would be another valuable area to focus. So with the council's generous support of the No Harm program, the team invested in a community-based outreach there in Robinwood, and it came to make connections with some of the youth there that ultimately led to a direct partnership within the high school and partnership with the Pathways to Peace program. As we have worked to integrate with Annapolis United and the additional resourcing that came with that, that allowed the team then to develop a more targeted program for youth called Options, which is focused on targeting at-risk youth or youth with limited opportunities to support them in their education pathway and to give them career opportunities. So Tola will talk a little bit more about those initiatives, but the idea is we are creating options, the goal is to provide teens who would not have the same opportunities or who may be at risk of becoming exposed to violence and caught up in cycles of violence, to give them options for their future and meet them where they are. So if it's an educational pathway, wonderful, but if they need support in skills development and alternative pathways, the program seeks to try and provide those, and Tola will talk about some of the initiatives. So we've taken our outreach, we're continuing our outreach based in the Robinwood community, but we have extended our work into the high school in this more targeted way.
Can you give us the meaning of the acronym options too?
Yes. Yeah, I like acronyms. So, opportunities, possibilities, technology, innovation, organization, networking, success.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Alderman Gay has a question.
Thank you. Curious how the information is being tracked, in particular, obviously in Eastport Terrace and Harbor House. So you're partnering with the school system, so, or in the Annapolis cluster in particular, so they could be middle or high. When you take kids on these trips, so when kids participate in these activities, if it's not something that you're doing already, will you in the future, okay, like say, I'll just use Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know why that football player's name popped in my head. He's the kid. He comes to the program like twice. Are you tracking how many activities he participates in, which days he showed up to the program, if he's actually been in contact with Annapolis Police Department over the duration of the program? Because I think this is good, because this is all three, like, big picture stuff, so that we can just see how everything's operated. But what I'm particularly interested in is the small details and figuring out if the program is actually effective in deterring kids from being involved in crime.
Right.
And so I'm just curious how that works in the relationship with APD. Are they, or will they at some point, help you compile data so that you can see if the teen has actually been involved in crime?
Right. I'll say that, so we work with Pathways to Peace and Charting Careers with their students. I mean, we track, which students go on trips and participate in, when we're there, right? Because, we're working with those groups, so right now, those groups basically focus on at-risk youth. That's why our prevention model is working to, keep them from going down the path of even being involved in the criminal justice system. I'll say that we are working with APD to develop a diversion program to work with youth that actually been in the system. But right now, that is that's where we're trying to go.
What I will add is that the team have been working to develop a database. At the moment, it is a spreadsheet database, but we're looking at actually what is the right case management tool and software we might need to track all of the participants in the program that we touch base with. So I know they do keep a record for every student who goes on to the college tours. I know that you're keeping other case records as well. And when we take students on college tours, we track and follow up how we do surveys with them to say, has this impacted your intention to engage in further education? So we do have feedback data of that. But the answer is, so we are tracking some of that information. Our partners are also tracking information, and we are in the process of building out that database, which currently, as I say, a spreadsheet, but looking at some proper case management
The
tools.
software would be helpful, obviously, as we come up in the budget, because if you need the software, then we should, just so that you can purchase it or do a trial or whatever.
Yes.
Just because I think that, like I said, the individual data is probably more important than the bigger picture, because then us as elected leaders, and then also as our public safety officials, can say, we've actually tracked and can improve, that juvenile crime is dropped in the city by X amount or whatever. So
Yes, you're absolutely right, Alderman Gay. And we're trying to work through what kind of case management software would be useful, and we will come to you in the budget if we need the funding to utilise that. And I would say that I think we can keep improving on our records and our case management and our individual tracking. We have not got a lot of data in the presentation, but I think Tola can speak to some of the big picture data around the reach and numbers. And we certainly have some data from the tours last year and the the outcomes that the students, the responses the student gave us in their follow-up surveys. So we'll definitely be reporting to you in detail on those prior to the budget as well.
Okay. The other thing is too, might we suggest that this be a part of the mayor's budget when he submits it?
Yes,
That would be helpful.
it will be.
And before I forget, this is sidebar, before I forget, whenever you all want to come back and give us an update, whether it's every 2 months, 3 months, or whatever, you just let us know. So, thank you.
And I just want to reiterate the need for the software, but Alderman Gay, we also do track individual cases from Robinwood. So that's more intentional, working one-on-one, and yeah, we do have data on that. So, we've only been doing it for about 6 months this year, so it'll be, you have a better view of each person we worked with after the year.
Madam Chair, do you mind?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, obviously, because police is coming at some point. But in my personal opinion, and I don't have, any background information except for what I hear on the streets, but you mentioned that Eastport being the #1 concern. I actually think it's Robinwood. I think so, just because in my personal opinion, Eastport is getting better from a patrolling perspective, from a, just random shootings, from targeted shootings, from actual homicides, has went way down. Obviously, a part of that is because they've arrested the habitual offenders. And then the second of that is, I think the clear message has been sent. So there's not so much like violent gang activity. It's much more now just a terrible drug market, which also does influence crime, but there's not a lot of violence crime there. Robinwood, on the other hand, I personally believe is much more, much higher of a concern as it relates to violent crime to me. It's the setup of the community, and the fact that it's just so off the beaten path, and it's not like a Eastport, which is surrounded by single-family homes and has a lot of attention on it, so there's constantly neighbors calling, etc. Robinwood is by itself, and I think a lot of what is taking place is also the state's attorneys are talking about parent accountability. Okay, with the kid that just this weekend, I don't know the details and all that stuff, 16 shot or whatever. Parent accountability, and I know I'll save that for the police. This is not your section, but I'm curious, how do you all get involved in something like that? A 16-year-old is shot, which in what appears to be a self-inflicted gun wound. Does the options outreach go after a child like that? Do you get with the police department and say, okay, this terrible event has happened, let's follow up with this child, and just see what resources that we can provide?
Alderman Gay, I think we're getting a little bit beyond this discussion, and that's something maybe for us to talk to the police about.
Okay.
Because they're not probably prepared for this scenario.
I would just say, in that situation, no. And we're working towards having that partnership, because it is, confidential information going on with certain cases. I will use the example of the school fight, one of probably school fights at Annapolis High School. We, Officer Joe Hudson did reach out to me to reach out to some African-American parents, because it was Latinos versus African-American issue, what have you. And so I reached out to a couple parents. We, one of my staff members met with them. And, the reality is, some of them didn't want to meet. And, a lot of times there's, for example, the school, there's only so much information school can share, right? So yeah, that is something that we're working towards, I'll say.
And I will only add that, yes, we've been in discussions with Chief Jackson about this for some months. I know APD are looking at their own youth diversion program that would sort of be an accompaniment to the re-entry program. I don't want to speak on behalf of APD, but working together collaboratively to be able to identify, collaborate, connect on the serious at-risk cases, and young children or teens who are already involved in crime or exposed to violence and guns. So our program is not equipped to deal with those particular cases, but we very much want to work towards with APD to find the pathways for those.
Thank you.
For those.
Oh, no, not a problem. Just want to welcome Alderman Huntley from Ward 1. As you all know, this
Hello.
year we're going to be focusing on a ward per month, and he's been gracious enough to come here tonight, and Mr. Eric Evans representing the business community. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Go right ahead, Mr. Jai.
Okay. Through Annapolis United, we were able to launch last year our career college exploration program, planning to taking 10 trips. We've been on 2 already. So half of the trips are to colleges or universities locally, and then the other half of the trips are to local businesses in the area. And we want to expose youth to, real career opportunities after high school, sorry.
And we haven't included data there on the last few months, but the outcome last year of our college trips was around 40% of the students who previously had indicated they were not interested in further education indicated afterwards that they did want to pursue further education, and also began to identify particular career pathways they were interested in. And we'll have some updated data for you the next time we come, because we'd love to take up your offer, Madam Chair, and come back and report to you regularly.
Alderman Gay is a little miffed because UMES wasn't on the list, but we'll take care of that.
Well, the problem with UMES is it's 2 hours to get there, so we would only be able to spend 2 hours on campus and then drive back so the students could get, transportation home. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But we already talked with Wayne Gerald, so.
My cousin?
Robinwood Engagement. This is the community-based violence prevention part of the program in Robinwood. We did a series of events so far, 3 out of events, and we're planning an end-of-school event. Purpose to provide a regular presence in the Robinwood community, in the resource center, and doing events in the community center. A couple partnerships we had, mental health, suicide prevention. We also work with Mr. Fix-It-Flat for the Halloween and Christmas event we did, and Pastor Menendez, OCS, Positive Impact, as well as the Banneker Douglas Museum art program, Banneker Douglas Tubman Museum art program, and we'd like to collaborate with them on a mural on the basketball court.
Alderman Gay?
Thank you. Just so that a lot of this is me just trying to get budget stuff together. Supporting Banneker Douglas Tubman, so you don't have the money for the mural yet, or?
No.
So you need either like arts in public places or something like that too?
And I've also reached out to the county executive's office. He said, Benson Molden said that I should submit a plan. So we need to look at resurfacing the court, and then the artist will have a rendering for us.
And we are going to also look at the process of applying for funding through our own AIPPC.
So when will we know? Is it possible? I just was speaking to the Alderwoman if you all come back in March, will we know like if the county is going to lend you money, or what we'll need to do for the court?
Yeah.
Or okay,
We'll have an estimate by March, definitely, probably February.
thank you so much.
Our Annapolis United partnership with the Community Service and Resource Pop-Up Tour, 14-week pop-up tour from July to October. We engaged over 1,500 residents in 14 different neighborhoods. And we partnered with over 30 vendors, including APD, AFD, OEM, OCS, to provide free resources. And we also had food and music fun.
And we know it was at least 1,500, and it was more because we gave out 100 Chick-fil-A sandwiches at each pop-up.
Yes.
So I was going to mention the data. We expanded the program this year. The first year in 23 had proved very successful, and we had been to 8 different areas of the community. So this year we went to 14. And we were able to connect with 800 residents, around 800 residents in 23, over 1,500 in 24. It's a true partnership. I think it's why it's been so, exciting to partner with the Annapolis United program and bring all of these into one umbrella, because our colleagues in fire, OEM, APD, Rec and Parks, OCS, all participate in these pop-up tours and connect with residents, and we have numerous community engagements who come out for them. And also, I want to thank the members of the council who've also made it a priority or been very supportive to come and be at those events in their wards. It's really an opportunity to just try and connect with those underserved residents who just don't have perhaps the option easily to travel somewhere or the ability to get information about services. So it's proved, we want to thank all the partners, our city partners and our community partners for helping us try and reach those residents and provide them with resources.
Absolutely. I think I missed one. It was excellent.
This is just a list of the neighborhoods we went to and a small list of the partners on the side, on the right side.
Can you speak up a little, Mr.
Oh,
Guy?
just a list of the neighborhoods we went to, and then on the other side is the list of partners.
No, Mr.
On the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. This is about the neighborhood beautification leadership micro grant. Okay.
Alderman Gay has a question.
Thank you. Is this an active grant, or is this something that you want money for?
No, this is something we already did. It's active. And,
Is this run out of the mayor's office, or?
Annapolis United.
yeah, Annapolis United. So, I mean, I know it's not like a typical grant that the city gives out because it's only $500. But we wanted to empower neighborhood leaders and, small groups. And, even, for example, Ms. Phyllis in Bay Ridge Gardens, she's going to use the check to do a Black History Month event. A couple people doing community gardens, other activities. The point was just to be able to, like I said, support neighborhood leaders and give them a little bit of funding to do a community-centric event that either focus on beautification or leadership.
And I will just add that all of the applicants had to submit, like any grant funding, they had to submit an application and meet particular requirements. But the thinking for this, I think, really was partly evolved from the work we'd done in Robinwood the previous year. And we had worked with Hacker to erect no harm signs. The signs, if you go there, you will see in different places in the community, prominently placed, "Don't shoot down our dreams," and really targeting at the youth violence that was prevalent, particularly problematic in 2023. And the idea is this is based on other programs like Cure Violence and other neighbourhood violence prevention programs, with the idea being that you need some public outward disruptions to help people start to think differently about their circumstances. Those signs have had a lot of interest. We've actually had communities come to us and ask us to do the same thing there, but we are restricting that to Robinwood. But this was a similar idea that we're connecting with leaders in communities. How can we support you to do some initiatives that boost morale, that break the cycle and help people to see that they can come together to solve problems in their own neighbourhood. So that's really was the idea of the grant.
Okay, thank you.
And just to speak real quickly about our Naptown CEO Academy Makerspace partnership with Charting Careers. And this is working with at-risk youth.
Your mic's not on.
There we go.
Sorry. The Naptown CEO Academy Makerspace. So we're working, partnering with Charting Careers and Eastport United Methodist Church. Well, the space will be at an Eastport United Methodist Church. The students we'll be working with are from Charting Careers. So we're going to be working with them in the schools to do entrepreneurship curriculum, and then we want to work with them at the church with a makerspace where we'll have some STEM and technology that they can use. So our goal is that they'll be able to either start a business by the end of the school year, or they'll be able to have a co-op business together.
Alderman Gay has a question.
Thank you. I'm just, I'd like actually if you would pause or wait for, not wait, but work in tandem with the Economic Matters Committee, which just, I'll find out where it is. We put out $25,000 for bid for the African American disparity study. So that should be making its way back to us hopefully sometime soon. But a part of that, we also have $5,000 to host an event for African American business or minority business investment. And so it'd be, I mean, just work with us so that you can take advantage of that and invite those children to the event and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that'll be launched in March. We've also worked with Bowie State and Anne Arundel Community College for this. And then our Young Man Leadership Program, this is kind of to what you were saying, DeJuan, but we're going to identify 5 youth from Robinwood and work with them with the executive life coach. He's going to volunteer his time from Annapolis, Brett Riviero. And so we're going to help develop their personal skills. And then we also want to help give them the skills to learn how to run their own business, which he does both.
Okay. 2 things I want to mention. Number 1, the program you all are having at Robinwood every other Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
Touch on that. And the other thing was, the organization that's working in the Eastport Terrace Harbor House community. I met with them a couple of weeks ago. I was very impressed. So that might be something that we can tout as far as the numbers looking like we think are better than they have been. So, but talk about that program.
Okay. Let me finish with this, sorry, because that's a part of NAM. And so I just want to go over, finish the no harm.
The one every the Wednesday, yeah.
Yes. Second. Okay, so that's it. So NAM, Naptown Anti-Dope Movement, has launched a on-site resource day at the Robinwood Resource Center. And you know, Tiana Hayes is the program coordinator. So she's providing resources such as Narcan, fentanyl test strips, but as well she's offering her time to assist people in filling out any type of applications or support they need. So she's there, I believe, 3 hours during the day on Wednesdays.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to add?
I would just touch on a question from Alderman Gay earlier about crimes data. So our planned outreach to the Robinwood community was really born in 2023 based on the research Tola was doing and the crime stats that he was pulling together. I'm going to be very honest, I have not looked at the stats for the last couple of months. We usually see them a little bit later, and you often go in to try and do the analysis. But can we speak, you know, we're not going to kind of claim, it's very hard to claim that there's any direct parallel between the work you do to support the community and residents and to provide pathways for youth who are at risk and directly link that back to crime data. But I do think there's been some improvements over the past year which are very encouraging, and I don't know if you can speak to that in any more detail.
I think the only thing I can really say is that we were tasked to try to prevent gun violence, and I don't think there was any murders in Robinwood last year, but you know.
Yeah, so we would not claim that any way that we can establish that link, but it's really just to be clear that that was our focus. It's what we can do to prevent violence, gun violence in particular, to provide pathways to our youth. And the other thing I will just say that through the youth outreach in the high schools and through the options program, that that's also been a feeder to the city's internship program, and we've been able to bring some of those youth into that program. So we're trying to build out all of the connections and the partnerships and work collaboratively with community organisations who are doing the same work, not necessarily replicate, but partner and support them in their work as well.
Great. In my experience, everything we do helps.
Yeah.
Everything helps. So, Alderman Huntley.
I just had a brief, it's more of a kudos, but there is a question. I think it's really exciting and really impressive to see that we are distributing xylazine test strips. That is something that I would hazard a guess that if we went around the country and asked other cities, that there's very, very few other folks who are out on the front doing that and addressing that issue. I'm curious what if either of you can speak to this, and feel free to say if not, what you hear when you're distributing both those and the fentanyl test strips. Do you generally get the sense that most folks are really, maybe this is the wrong way to phrase it, but that they're enthusiastic, that they are looking for these and they're trying to avoid these drugs?
So our outreach coordinator, and thank you for what you said, our outreach coordinator, Tiana Hayes, not here, but I know from speaking with her that yes, people are very excited to be able to get some of these materials. She even fought to because we were getting the first test strips. I think they had to. It was like a urinalysis or test or whatever, and she had a lot of people asking her for test strips that they can just use for their their product per se.
And Tiana's done an exceptional job. She is great. Alderman Gay.
And I'm sorry, I was just going to add that the NAM Substance Abuse Prevention Program that the Mayor's Office, that Tiana delivers through the Mayor's Office, is under the umbrella of the city's opioid intervention program, which is managed by OEM. So it's a partnership program, and Tiana works very closely with OEM as well on her outreach activities, and Director Simmons is always, a great guide and resource and reports on the overall impacts of that work.
Do you have an update on the person that we're supposed to hire that we've been talking about since July?
Can I get your update tomorrow?
That sounds very good, because we've been talking about this for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And we understand and we know that we need that additional person to do the work that needs to be done in the community.
Yes.
So if we can speed it up from July,
Yes.
that would be great.
Okay.
Alderman Pindell, Charles, is that someone who that position was added in the budget?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I'll just let you know, at the next Finance Committee meeting, we've asked the Director of HR to come and provide us an update on all the positions that were added to the budget and where they are in the hiring process.
I'm pretty, it was a very small amount.
One thing I will just clarify there, so the staff we employ through the No Harm Annapolis United budget are not budgeted under salaries in the city, they're budgeted under the program. So it's program dependent. It's like a grant. The council has been kind enough to give, Annapolis United was its own funded program. The council was gracious to give us an internal grant, if you like, for No Harm. Those have been amalgamated together. So it comes out of that like a grant program, more or less.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Petty.
And I just want to say, as far as NAM, we've had Winter Health Fair. Want to give kudos to Tiana for partnering with the Maryland Department of Labor and Community Legal Action Fund to provide 2 expungement fairs. One was at the Annapolis Library, one was at the Lighthouse, and she was able to, they were able to bring in the NBA and several partners to help people with their, quality of life issues. And that's something we've definitely been working on with Chief Simmons and OEM and the OPT.
That's been hugely successful, those expungement programs.
Yes.
Extraordinarily well attended.
Thank you.
And another Annapolis idea that has really brought in county partners and other partners. So, I just applaud Tiona and the team and all the partners involved in that. It's been
Great.
It's been a great.
Thank you all
program.
so much. What a wonderful presentation, as well as information that's been extraordinarily helpful to many, I'll get to that, many residents in our city. I had peripheral vision, you know. Alderman Gay has a question.
Thank you. Did you get, just a breakdown for now, so previously, that we were giving you $40,000, and you all were splitting it 4 ways. You would get 10, OEM would get 10. How was it being split before the opioid money came in?
Well, and don't get me wrong,
Was it 35 or 40,000? I know it was,
no, that was like
No
at the
more than
very
that.
beginning,
35.
but I think at some point, part of it was county and city funding, so everyone could be funded, because we probably have had steadily about 40,000, 50,000 every year, just for NAM.
This is something that the expert can speak to.
just quickly if possible.
Well, he's next.
Kevin Simmons, emergency manager for the city. It takes about somewhere about 150,000.
But what are you getting?
What am I getting?
So pre-opioid litigation and them allocating funds to the units for opioid intervention, the city and the county were allocating funds, and if I remember correctly, it was somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. Then it would be split between the 4 programs, one run by OEM, one run by the mayor's office, fire, and police. Is that right?
No. So the 35,000 that we get from the county, that goes to OEM. All that goes to OEM. So the other 3 programs right now are funded by the opioid restitution funds that we
But it
secured.
hasn't always been like that.
It has not always been like that. We've gotten grants. One year we had $189,000 worth of grants that we split amongst us, and we don't split it evenly. It's based on the demands of that program. So fire department gets a lot because most of the folks that work in their program are working on overtime. So that's a lot more than OD free, which is in emergency management. And I think in second, the largest budget second is NAM. So we've transitioned recently to the opioid restitution funds plus the 35,000 that we get from the health department.
So the city is no longer allocating the 35,000 because we're relying on the opioid funding?
We've never allocated the 35,000. So the city supplemented what we didn't get from the opioid restitution funds. So we have.
Okay, but I'm saying, okay, so pre-opioid lawsuit, the city or the county was given the 4 programs somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. And they were splitting it about $10,000 each. I remember having that conversation very vividly during the budget season because they were saying it wasn't enough.
So I think it was one time that we did that, but
Okay.
if you can imagine, $10,000 for each one of these programs is just like a drop in the bucket.
Exactly.
So when we didn't have a grant, and I think Dave Jarrell was the city manager at the time, we hit the city up for like $140-something thousand, if my memory is correct. And then that's supplemented with the $35,000 that we received from the health department. And again, to run all 4 programs is about $150,000.
All right, so.
So I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look up the history to
That'd be
give you exact.
fantastic. And I ask because I am interested in expanding what we do for opioid intervention in the city. I'll get to why in a second. In 2023, and by the way, MK sends out these fantastic substance abuse reports. I don't have December's, which would have been last, but I have November's. So as of November, in my ward at least, in 2023, we had 113 overdoses total. This year, we have 71. This is as of November. And we had fatal overdoses, 12 fatal overdoses up to November last year. This year, we have 8. So everything is obviously going down, which is good, and I think that it has a lot to do with, obviously, your work, NAM, the fire department, the police. What I'm concerned about is that I think now, for at least the last 6 years, we've been, getting in the same circle of Narcan, fentanyl strips, et cetera. And I think that we could do so much more, and particularly because we are getting funding from litigation, and I know what they do in Baltimore with the funding that they get from litigation. They are not just buying fentanyl strips, resource packets, and all of this stuff. They're sending people to rehabilitation centers. They're bringing in community therapists. Transforming how you interact with somebody that's going through addiction. And so I think that we're at that point where we can get away from filling up the vending machines. We can get away from buying the Narcan. It's always good to have those things, the resources available, but we can also start getting people the legitimate help that they need. In particular, I won't use the name, but there's several instances in Eastport that we've discussed where the individual wants help. They want to get the assistance, but if you're only taking me to Crownsville and I could get a $20 cab back to Annapolis so I can buy whatever substance I need, I'm really not getting, it's just a vicious cycle. And so I hope we can break that and start really, really utilizing those funds in a way that transform opioid addiction.
And I think I'm always open to new things, and you're right. But I will also tell you that what we've been doing since 2017 is working, i.e. your ward. Your ward used to excel and be number one, and it used to be the most overdosing ward. Now you're down to number 3. So
And that's why I think the work is good, but we could always just, try to put in, other programs. So maybe we go from 3 to 8. I'm not knocking any of the work that you've done, just thinking outside of the box, in particular because I asked for the opioid restitution fund from finance. And they were saying as through 12/31/24, $126,195,013 has been allocated. And I'm curious
has been allocated or in the account?
I'll double check on that.
Because I'm gonna need every bit of that.
I'm seeing
this coming budget.
It says, okay, you're right. It says opioid restitution fund balance as of 12/31/24. So
that
I
with
could
the
be reading this
35,
wrong, but if not, you're sitting on $126,195.13.
so that with the 35,000 I'm getting from the health department will get us where we need to be
Okay.
for another fiscal year.
I'll follow up and make sure I'm reading this right, but for the record, it says the opioid restitution fund has a balance on 12/31/24. So unless you've spent anything in the last 30 days, it's $126,195.13. So.
And Alderman Gay, if I may, I think your question goes to the heart of a decision that will lie before the council in the coming year. We truly appreciate the council's support for the initiatives of the mayor. And I have had many people across the city say to me, it's the first time we've had an administration that comes out to us. But we know with an election and a new mayor and a new administration, priorities may change. And I do think that is something I will be following up with Director Simmons, with the other directors, and bring to the council for those to think about those decisions as we go forward into a new financial year with a new administration coming. So I think your question about what is the next phase is a very pertinent one from that aspect as well.
Correct for the record, kid, because I don't want to have anybody in trouble. And you used only last year $19,045.35.
When you say you,
it says opioid restitution funds used through. So from I'm assuming January through December 12/31/24, $19,000.45 or $19,045.35. But I'll get clarity on this just so that we can see exactly, because again, I think the program is doing phenomenal. That's why my ward has dropped significantly. I'm just curious where we could, say, take $50,000 and put in a separate fund and allow you to, send somebody to a rehab facility if they really, really need to, or get them some connected community therapy help or something like that. So thank you for all that you do.
I'm sorry, I just want to add, and respecting what you said, but Baltimore City, had a separate case than our jurisdiction. They separated themselves from the state, so their settlement was way more than what we have. The second thing I would ask you to look at is the cannabis tax fund at the county, because a lot of that money is supposed to be used for distressed communities, and a lot of the communities we work in are in those areas, zip codes. But also, again, the monies is supposed to be used to help people, get into rehab and change their life. So I would look at that if you have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for presenting on ID 2525.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to slide right on into ID 3625, which is Office of Emergency Management update.
Good evening.
Good evening. Again.
Kevin Simmons, Emergency Manager, City of Annapolis. Alderman Huntley, are you a Terp?
You know it.
My wife's a Terp.
So is mine. That's where we met.
So I'm going to give an update, and it's going to be on Ward 1. So we're going to talk about a substance use disorder, and we've already talked a lot about it. We're going to talk about some flooding that we had that was pretty extensive in 2024. And then we're going to talk about some of our unhoused folks that kind of hang out in Ward 1. So in 2024, Ward 1 had the lowest reported overdoses since 2015. And 2015 is when we started keeping records on overdoses. In 2024, Ward 1 had 7 overdoses. The first lowest was in 2015 at 6 overdoses. 4 wards reported more overdoses than Ward 1 in 2024. They were wards 2, 3, 4, and 6. And then wards 5, 7, and 8 had fewer overdoses than Ward 1. Ward 1 had no fatal overdoses reported. And of the 7 overdoses that they had, all of them received Narcan. So that's a first for the city. You had 7 overdoses in Ward 1, and all of them received Narcan on their overdose. So that's the first time we've seen anything like that. And you can see some progression with the chart. In 2022, you had 8 overdoses. 2023, you had 10. And then 2024, you had the second lowest in Ward 1, which is 7. And then in 2022 and 2023, you had 1 fatal in those years. You had 1 fatal for each year, no fatals for 2024.
Alderman Gay has a question.
When parties happen downtown, and say like somebody overdoses at Acme, and they are a Ward 5 resident, when you track that data, do you count it as a Ward 1 incident, or do you count it as
where it happened?
So you mean to tell me, in all of things that happened downtown and downtown, only 7 incidents have happened in the last year?
7 documented, yes. Now if it's others that weren't documented, if it's others that received Narcan, received Narcan and got up and walked away,
That's a great step.
that's it. So here are the locations where they had the overdoses. There were 2 of them on West Street, 1 on Northwest, 2 on Dock Street, 1 on Bloomsbury Square, and 1 on Park Place. So a little bit.
Step back again. Step back again, please. Most of Ward 1 overdoses along the border of Ward 2, a trend for the last 4 years. That's important to note.
Yep.
Director Simmons, can I just ask, you don't happen to know any detail about that, the one in Park Place, do you? That just seems like kind of a anomaly to
An
me.
outlier, right? I can find out for you.
Okay, just curious.
Thanks for pointing that out, Alderwoman. So some demographics on Ward 1, overdoses by age group. We had 1 in the 18 to 24 age range, 2 in the 25 to 34 age range, 2 in the 35 to 44, and then 2 in the 45 to 54 age range. Go by race. In the overdoses, you had 7 overdoses, 4 were African Americans, 3 were white. African Americans still represent the largest group of overdoses. In 2024, 65% of all our overdoses in the city were African American. Just some 2024 data on fatalities. These folks died. We had 5 in Ward 2. We had 2 in Ward 3, 2 in Ward 4, 1 in Ward 5, and 1 in Ward 6. Again, Ward 1, 0 fatal overdoses.
I'm curious, when you map the incidents in Ward 2 out, are they in close proximity physically? And also, as it relates to dates, are they happening around the same time?
I can get that information for you. I didn't bring that with me. Fatal overdoses by race, and this is the whole city, citywide. 9 African Americans and 2 white. Fatal overdoses by age, 18 to 24, 1, 24 to 34, 4, 35 to 44, 1, and the biggest group is 55 to 64 at 5 fatal overdoses. Historically, the city saw more individuals overdosing in the 45 plus age range, specifically African Americans, and that's been for a long time. Okay? Just for you, Alderwoman, did you know? You always say that. So, we had 80 overdoses in the city of Annapolis last year. This is the first time since 2015 that we had double digits in overdoses. Usually we have triple digits. And I attribute that to Narcan. We started early, we got Narcan out there, we got the community comfortable with giving Narcan, we gave them instructions, we have a harm reduction vending machine in Eastport, so Narcan is pretty prevalent. And because they're out there using Narcan, because they're not afraid to do it, because they're stepping up, I think we see these low numbers.
And the 14, 15 pop-ups that we had this past summer, I think every one of them had Narcan available. So to me, that also helped those outreach events. So thank you.
So if you're looking at the total 80 overdoses for the city of Annapolis, if you want to go by ward, here's your snapshot. 7 in Ward 1, 9 in Ward 2, 18 in Ward 3. Ward 4, our highest overdosing ward, is 22. 2 in Ward 5, 15 in Ward 6, 2 in Ward 7, and 5 in Ward 8.
So pretty much everybody that's overdosing. In Ward 2, they're having a trouble with Narcan because they have the third fewest overdoses, but they have the highest or fatality rate.
So we have to pull back the layers on that. I wouldn't say that was the most prominent thing, but we have to pull back the layers. And, you know, one of the problems I'm having is staff. You know, I had a mass exodus, and I can't put too much attention into this like I usually do.
Chief Simmons, that's a huge point to make. And we're gonna beat on that right now. Staffing makes a huge difference in the way we service our residents.
Absolutely.
And the reason we're having problems with staffing is salary. And I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna throw out the elephant in the room. So we've got overdoses that are directly linked to the lack of staffing because we cannot pay the correct salaries we need to pay. People are suffering, and I'm saying it.
I'm saying that I can't give the attention that I used to give to this, because I think you were at the EOC and you saw my whiteboard. With the staff that I have and all the new people in there, I had a category of, I can do this. We're certainly going to do this. We're going to respond to emergencies, disasters, and crisis. This over here is nice to do. This down here, I'm not going to try to even do that. And this I'll do if I can get to it. So this is one of these things that is a mid-priority. And if I can do some things with this, I will. But it's slowed down a lot because of my mass exodus of staffing. I got new staffing, but they're all green.
Right.
And they won't be up to snuff in over a year. So I got the three core people, myself, the senior emergency management planner, and the deputy, doing everything. Budget, we just running around. It reminds me of the old plate trick. You know, you plate on a stick and you're spinning it. When one gets wobbly, you go over and spin it and give that some attention. So this is one of these things that are getting wobbly, but I can't give it my full attention.
Right. So people are affected because you don't have the staff, because you aren't paying the salaries necessary, because folks are leaving to get jobs that pay higher salaries. And so we're suffering behind that. So there's a direct correlation, and I don't want anything to be lost on that. Thank you.
So the saving grace with all of this is the other programs. Your Life Matters with the fire department, APD, SUD program, and NAM. So they're out there in full force. They have full staffing. We stay connected and all, and they're doing great things. So they're holding up stuff. But, you know, we're not firing on all cylinders because one of us has some of these problems where we can't pay full attention to all of this.
Thank you for the explanation.
So did you know we have a harm reduction vending machine in Eastport Community Center that's working good? I had a chat with Dr. Gedden, and she's going to actually add more stuff to the machine. So this is going well. This is going well. She's going to add some Planned Parenthood type stuff to the machine.
Great.
Okay, we talked about the 4 programs. We talked about NAM, which you heard from Tola. Your Life Matters, great program, originated in Florida. Annapolis Fire Department brought it here. It's been very successful. What I'm understanding is that the county's reaching out to our fire department to see if they can get something like that going over there. Then
And we'll hear from our fire department right after you. Thank you.
Yep. And then we have the Police Department's SUD program. I like this because they actually reach out to folks after they've had an overdose, see what kind of resources that they need or their family needs. That's pretty important in OD free and OEM. So did you know APD SUD, that's their substance use disorder program. Officers and civilian staff provide education to at-risk youth in hotspot areas. Officers and community liaisons or SUD specialists conduct follow-ups and provide resources to overdose victims. That's the pretty important thing that they do. Your Life Matters from the fire department focused on educating the community and preventing fatal overdoses. They train hundreds of folks, city employees included, and businesses on Narcan administration, Good Samaritan laws. And if you remember when we first started out, people wanted to know the liability of doing the Narcan thing. And I think with their education outreach, a lot of people have felt better about doing that. And hands-only CPR. Yes, sir.
The Lieutenant White is new. There was another gentleman running this. Yeah.
Captain Edwards.
Captain Edwards.
Captain Edwards, yep, Captain Edwards went on to different things. And I'm looking forward to what Lieutenant White's going to do with this program. He's certainly a capable individual.
One tidbit, when we were at the health department to that summit recently, I just had an opportunity, Chief O'Malley, even to chat with Kenneth White and Lieutenant White, and I mentioned to him it would be good if we kind of, I guess, enhanced our CPR, and I had some ideas, but we can definitely talk about that, so thank you.
Okay, we talked about NAM. I think Tola did a great job in describing NAM and what they do, and I like the way they engage young people.
Thanks to our Chief of Staff.
And Chief of Staff. Kind of a hip SUD program. And then it's the OD free, where everything falls under the umbrella of OD free. So basically we coordinate the 3 other programs. We deal with the budget and all. We keep up the website for resources for treatment and all. We have the public dashboard with overdose details, and we provide data trends and analysis on programs and citywide overdoses. And that's Mary Kay Severowski and Brandon Gosnell who run that one. No, Brandon's been around for a bit. He is a contractor whose funding comes from the opioid restitution funds. All right, we'll switch gears a little bit. So, as you all know, Annapolis has experienced about 925% of an increase in nuisance flooding since the 1960s. This is the largest increase in NOAA's research and data of any place that they research. Annapolis has the largest increase. No news there. So last year was challenging for us because on January the 9th, 2024, we had the 3rd largest flood ever in Annapolis history, a recorded flood history, and that was 5.1 feet over normal. And then in August 7th, we had another one, and that was 4.4 feet above normal. And that's rated as the 8th largest flood in Annapolis history. So we had, in last year, 2024, we had the 2 top 10 floods in Annapolis history. Never happened before. Also, last year, in 2019, 60 days with minor, moderate, or major flooding. And what I mean by that is 2.6 feet or higher. We had 60 days in 2019, and that was a record. So we just blew that away. In 2024, we had approximately 120 days at flooding at 2.6 or greater. The important thing about this slide is that if we do nothing, we're going to have a record-setting flood once a day by 2050. So, and if you want to put that in economic losses, it's 125 million in losses if we do nothing by 2055.
I think that needs to be highlighted. The figure is $125,285,974 in losses by 2025 if we do not address this issue.
2055.
Yeah, excuse me, 2055. Is that right? If we do not address this issue.
Yep. So
I think that's hugely significant.
the great thing about the city dock project,
I'll be 100 million.
the great thing about the city dock project, if I'm following correctly, is it'll lift everything up about 8 foot. Is it 8 foot still? And that's going to take care of a lot of stuff. All right, let's shift gears again. So a lot of our unhoused folks hang around downtown, you know. In good weather, they sleep in between buildings. They find a place to sleep. Usually it's somewhere in Ward 1. So we've had some extreme weather here lately, and our motto is nobody dies from exposure on the streets of Annapolis, and that hasn't happened since I've been here. And I don't want it to happen while I'm here or when I'm gone. So we had to take some extreme measures to make sure we keep them safe. But a little bit about the Winter Relief, the Warming Center program. It's located at the Stanton Center, as everybody knows. We've had 63 total activations since November the 12th, when we first opened it up for this season. Out of that, we've had 4 24-hour activations on January the 6th, January 7th, 19th, and 20th. We've had 756 hours of activation, a total of 1,666 total patrons come every night. You know, every night you come, that's a count. So 1,066 patrons with an average of 18 or more. I think that's a little low figure there per activation. 97% of the patrons are Annapolis residents. Now, I don't agree with that one, because when they come in, they sign in and it's a checkbox. Checkbox says, are you an Annapolis resident? So in a lot of folks' mind, if I don't check Annapolis, they're probably going to put me out, or they're going to do something to me, send me away. So everybody checks I'm an Annapolis resident when they roll in. So I don't think that that's accurate. Mostly male at 80-some%, 17% female, and 8 families utilize the service. When families come in, we call crisis response. I don't like the idea of little kids or adolescents or underage people being in the Stanton Center. We do house them when we need to, but we call crisis right away to try to get them a different type of placement. So you're all familiar with the extreme weather. We had the snow day where Governor Moore declared a state of emergency. We had a phase 2 snow emergency. We received about 9 inches of snow, which is our annual accumulation in one snow event. And then on the other side, we had extreme cold, where if you look at the wind chills on the certain dates, like the 16th, it was 4 degrees. The 20th, it was 5 degrees. 21st, 2 degrees. 22nd, 1 degree. 23rd, 9 degrees. 24th, 15 degrees. 25th, 11 degrees. So that type of temperatures are dangerous. That type of temperatures is deadly. It will kill you. So we have a number of unhoused people that we got to keep them living. So our motto is no one dies from exposure on the streets of Annapolis. So option 1 was to activate the warming centers for 24 hours. And these are the dates up there, the 6th, the 7th, the 19th, and the 20th. We did it for 24 hours. Not all the time we can do it for 24 hours. So when we can't do it for 24 hours, we go to option 2, So if it's unavailable in the daytime, what we do is we get with ADOT, and Director Moore has been great about this. He sends a bus to the Stanton Center at 6:30 a.m. Everybody loads into the buses at 6:30, and we take them to the Lighthouse Shelter, and they're there in the daytime, and they receive bus passes to come back to the Stanton Center, free bus passes to come back to the Stanton Center at night. So at the Lighthouse, that's great for them because they have a washer and dryer, they can clean their stuff, they can take showers, and they can have hot meals, and they do have a hot meal at the Stanton Center and a bagged lunch to go in the morning. So I just want to thank our long list of partners with the Stanton Center. The reason no one has died because of exposure is because of folks like this, the Lighthouse Shelter, ADOT, Department of Transportation, Mobile Crisis, APD, and Anne Arundel Police Department, and Recreation and Parks. And it just seems like this year, every time, I usually stop there during the weekdays at 6:30 in the morning, and seems like more than usual, there's an ambulance sitting out there for some reason. So it's a lot of ambulance calls. I'd like to thank my partners in the fire department as well. That I ran across an ambulance on Clay Street, not at the shelter, but on Clay Street this morning about 6:30. So for one time, it wasn't at the shelter. So that is all I have, Ward 1 wise. Take any questions.
Okay. Alderman Huntley.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the budgeting for all those services that the Warming Center provides, and like the staffing and the meals, and if I'm looking at the budget, where do I see those things, and how do we budget for what sound like the very variable expenses?
So I don't have the exact numbers in my budget. I want to say 40-something thousand, but I'm not sure. And we're under contract with a nonprofit, Blessed Tech. So we pay Blessed Tech. We use their employees. They manage it. We provide administrative oversight. They manage it day to day. I'm there every day, every morning at 6:30 when I get in. I lay my eyes on the place, except for the weekends. So that's how we run it. We give them a stipend, and they run it.
Excellent, thank you. The other question I had for you is when you find, and maybe this is as much a question for Chief Romali, when you see that there tends to be an ambulance there, do you have a sense of what is that there for typically?
So it's a lot of stuff. So I've seen this happen where, okay, you have a person, they're all out of there at 6:30. They're supposed to be on the street at 6:30. They don't have anywhere to go, and they say chest pain, trouble breathing. So when they say chest pain, trouble breathing, you call an ambulance. They get in the ambulance and they go to the hospital, and they stay warm. They do that. But many of the calls are legitimate calls as well. So, any other question?
Anything else?
Alderman McGee, I can't believe you don't have a question.
I got all mine out early.
I'm sorry?
I got it out early.
Okay. Well, that's too late for that.
Thank you so much, Director. We really do appreciate, Chief.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. And we will move into our next order, which is our fire department. Which is ID 3525. Good evening, gentlemen.
Yep. Good evening. Doug Romali, Fire Chief. With me to my left is Deputy Chief Matthew Lopez, and to my right is Deputy Chief Nathan Powell. And as they're pulling up our presentation for Ward 1, I just wanted to let you know that we're very happy to say tomorrow morning we have 3 firefighter paramedic trainees that are graduating from the Prince George's County Fire Academy at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're proud of that. We're even more proud to let the council know that in this case, 2 of the 3 are Annapolitans. They were born and raised here and have
Great.
grown up in the city of Annapolis.
Congratulations.
So we're glad to see them here tomorrow, and they'll be joining the ranks of our department. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Powell and Deputy Chief Lopez to talk about Ward 1 and our responses.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Next slide, please. Just a quick overview of the things we're going to review. We'll give you a citywide overview of responses for all of calendar year 2024, and then take a look at by ward breakdown for Ward 1. We'll just talk about a couple operational challenges that we face in Ward 1, and then I'll give it to my partner, Chief Lopez, to talk about our ongoing strategic planning process. So for 2024 as a whole citywide, we responded to 13,626 calls for service. This is an increase of approximately 500 incidents from 2023, and our call volume has been increasing by roughly 500 calls per year over the last 5 years. So we see an 18.3% increase over a 5-year period. Of those responses, 75.35% are emergency medical services. That's generally a consistent number and has been for about the last 10 years, between 72 and 76% emergency medical services. Next slide, please, sir. So by ward for 2024, Ward 1 saw us 1,265 times. It was our second busiest ward in the city. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Ms. Sean Wampler in GIS, because by ward tracking is generally not a function that we track, and our software reporting platform does not capture it that way. So she was actually able to go back and draw that data out of our reporting system and populate it by ward. There was a
In GIS, you did that?
Sean Wampler in GIS did this for us, yes. There was about 10%, she said 1,200 and something, that she could not quantify. And they were dispatched as an address of West Street, as an example. They're not all West Street, but just as a singular example, West Street could fall into several different wards or even into Anne Arundel County. So we're continuing to evolve and work with her to refine this data capture. We're moving towards a GPS, longitude, latitude capture of the data, so she will be able to plot them specifically everywhere.
Any reason why Ward 1 is the second busiest ward? Any thoughts?
I don't know, ma'am. I tried to go back and pull the breakdown of dispatch types, EMS versus fire versus rescue, and compare that into each ward, and I was not successful in capturing that data. I don't. It would be speculative, but I think that our community visitors and tourists, especially in the summertime and busy weekends and busy Naval Academy times, do contribute an uptick in our call volume during those periods, and those calls seem to be focused in the Ward 1 area.
Makes sense.
I'd also speculate while we're on that, you know, we have an older population in Ward 1 that could contribute to some of those EMS calls as well.
Correct, yes, sir. I agree.
I have a question.
Yes,
So
sir.
the 5,825 calls, of that, 1,300 roughly are the ones that she couldn't track?
She could not capture 1,300 approximately, so she lumped them into
Okay.
the county or that's all mutual aid responses. Occasionally we go to Queen Anne's County, occasionally to Prince George's County.
Is that excessive or no? It seems like and again, I'm just looking here. Are you doing more mutual aid than?
It's pretty standard. We do 2/3 of our calls in the city of Annapolis and 1/3 of our calls outside the city of Annapolis.
Okay.
That's about right, yes, sir. So with the data she couldn't capture just being lumped in there, it inflates that number slightly, but Chief O'Malley's correct. It's historically about 2/3 in the city and 1/3 out. Next slide, please, sir. One statistical piece we would like to highlight citywide is our fire loss, the dollar valuations trends. calendar year 2024 was a very good year for us as far as fire loss. As you can see, the year before we were over $2.5 million, but for calendar year 2024, we were under $500,000 in total fire loss in the city. Also, to highlight, in 2024, we had no civilian fire injuries or deaths, and our last fire death in the city was in 2010. So, knock on wood, the men and women of the Annapolis Fire Department are fantastic at their job. They're the best in the country. I'd put them up against anybody, and they do a great job. And it's because of them and our proactive programs, along with our response programs, that we continue to be effective. And to borrow an analogy from Chief Simmons about spinning the plates, our staff are very good at wearing many different hats and doing many different jobs, and we certainly appreciate all the work they do. Just some operational challenges, and these are not anything new or acute for us. We have challenges in some of the colonial era construction in the historic district because fire codes were not a thing then. Another challenge in those occupancies is renovations over time and evolving from, original colonial era construction and then being renovated, we'll say once a century since. There's just different layers of construction contained in the same building. Sometimes there's void spaces, different construction materials, and things of that nature. Narrow streets are always a challenge. We do our best, and we take great care in engineering, designing our fire apparatus to accommodate the narrow streets. But they do present a challenge, especially in areas where there's parking on both sides of the street. State Circle as an example. It's a challenge. It's tough, but again, our staff are trained and are good at that. One thing we are appreciative of is the council's support in passing of ordinance 1-22 back in 2022, which would require buildings on Main and Francis to be sprinklered within 5 years of the enactment of that ordinance, which is coming up in April of 27. Again, we appreciate the city's support with the sprinkler loan revolving fund and the tax incentives that they provided to property owners for getting the sprinklers installed. That's.
May I ask a couple questions, Alderman? Sure.
Go right ahead, Alderman.
I got sort of two categories of questions on this, one about the narrow streets and one about the sprinkler system. On the narrow streets, funny enough, I was just talking with the resident about this morning. To what extent has the department looked at having, let's call them atypical firefighting apparatuses? I've heard of some other towns around the country having basically smaller vehicles. How do you guys think about that, and how much have you explored that?
We have. In fact, that's in our last generation of fire engines that pump water and bring hose. We've actually downsized those. We've gone to shorter wheelbases, shorter height overall, kind of took them back to a back to basics type design pattern where it was less things to go wrong. They were more user-friendly, more simple, more compact. That helps with turning radiuses. It helps with, widths. Both of our ladder trucks in the city are the hook and ladder tiller trucks. So with them being articulating in the middle as they are, that also helps with turning radius. It allows us to get through the tighter streets, make turns in a, not necessarily tighter, but in a more calculated manner.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, you were talking about State Circle. I am very impressed that you can ever get around State Circle. Or my street, Dean Street, is another one that is, I actually had to have a fire truck called to Dean Street last year, and golly, that you guys can even get down that is it's a real testament to your work, your skill.
Thank you.
On the sprinkler system ordinance, I've heard a lot of concerns from our businesses, and so a lot of this comes beyond the fire department's control, but around, there's sort of two distinct problems, as I understand. One is around the city's permitting of it, which is, we all know, is an issue with all sorts of types of permitting, but the other is around who does and can install these. So I understand there's a very limited number of companies that work on installing sprinkler systems. Do you think that there is any, assuming you had the appropriate resources for this, that it would make sense to create the ability within our fire department to do some of that work in-house and have businesses pay for it. Because as I understand, so much of the problem is just Annapolis is so unique, and that's why we only have this one person interested in doing it.
So there are several sprinkler companies out there that can install sprinkler systems, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. As for the fire department doing something in-house, it would not be cost-effective, plus the expertise and the requirements and skills you have to install the sprinkler systems is something. Now, we look at it, we have a very good fire marshal's office, we have a fire protection engineer on staff, and if alternatives are brought to them, they will check on it to see if those can be utilized in these structures. What we have found is there haven't been a lot of business owners that have taken us up on the sprinkler grant. And also, some of it is the building owners compared to the tenants and who's responsible. There's a challenge with the ordinance as it is in place, and that's why it's in front of some of your committees now, because of the residential aspect, because we have different types in the buildings, some business and then some residential above. There was a problem with the ordinance, so that's being corrected. I do have concerns that because of the timing, that not a lot of people have taken us up on that. So when we get to this timeline on 2027, what's the council and the city stance going to be about these buildings? Are we going to pull use and occupancy permits? Are we going to start fining people? Do we need to extend the time period? And I know that's being worked through in a lot of committees currently.
Thank you for the feedback on it. Do you think there are additional changes that are worthwhile to, I guess my question is sort of more broadly, how do you think we can get more of these folks to comply? Do you have any thoughts on it? Because it seems to be a really thorny problem as I talk to our businesses.
It's, I don't have an answer.
Okay,
It's a hard sell. It really is.
Yeah, it's an big expense and.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Alderman.
Alderman Gay.
I agree with you. Maybe you weren't suggesting it, but I'll suggest it. You probably should pull use and occupancy permits. I remember you showed us a video a while back of a place with a sprinkler, a place without a sprinkler. And it's night and day, just the response that it makes. And then also, when we had a chance to go out to the Navy thing and, be firefighters for a couple hours, and to see, I don't understand it, especially with a historic building. I wouldn't extend. It's not my ward. I'll demand a courtesy, obviously, but I think, obviously, the economic value of the buildings, the history, in 5 years, and the money to implement the project, to me, seems like you should start pulling occupancy permits at some point. Because it's about people more than anything.
So what I can tell you is we've been through this. We just talked about having a very good year with fire loss being down. One major fire downtown would triple that, and we don't need, you saw the wildland fires in California. Now, I'm not equivalent it to the wildland fires, but because our buildings are old in construction and are together so close, we've seen when one of them catches fire, then we have problems with exposures, and that's why we're very proud our units get there quickly. But we get wind coming off the water. There's a lot of things that play into factors that could create that, and that was part of the reason that we don't want another historic district fire, and that's why the council voted on this ordinance.
And then finally, our strategic planning process. Our last strategic plan for the fire department was back in 2004. The fire chief directed me and the staff to start working on it, so we decided to use the Center for Public Safety Excellence model of strategic planning that has been used for neighboring jurisdictions. A committee internally has been established, diverse cross-section of members within the department, diverse being both rank and cultural diversity. We have in the process of developing and will be implementing both internal and external stakeholder surveys, evaluating needs as well as expectations of the fire department by both employees as well as the citizens of the city of Annapolis. Our expectation for this committee is to have a draft document to the fire chief to review by September 2025.
Is that normal for it to be 20 years? A 20-year gap in the strategic plan? Or is it just something happened and you hadn't had a chance to get to it? Not that, I'm not worried
I don't
about
really have an
anything, I'm
answer. That was many years before I was here. Typically, you would reestablish a strategic plan as the last one kind of comes to the end of its life of 10, 15 years.
Okay.
This has been 20 years.
Like the
so-
census.
Huh?
10 years like the census.
Yes.
Okay.
As you're aware, in the last budget cycle, the union went and had the International Association of Firefighters do their own study. We wanted to add onto that study and take a look at that as part of our strategic planning. As you know, there's some concerns about our staffing levels, and we agree that we have to look at that. We also have to be cost-effective for the citizens of Annapolis and be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And we want to make sure that the studies have the proper documentation to go along with it. That was part of getting the right people in positions. As you've been seeing, we've been moving people around within the department so that we could, we're very proud of everybody wearing so many hats in our department, but with that, we sometimes overtax our employees. And as we add more stuff to it, stuff falls off the plate. Hopefully that's not anything major, but we've been doing so much and for so long with less that it's coming to the point that we want to make sure, but we want the data to be there to support this planning, and that's what this strategic plan is all about.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Gay has 2 questions.
The first one is right in line with exactly what you were just talking about in your first question or remark, actually, the software, when you were saying GIS was helping assisting with all of that. How much does our department rely on technology? And is that something where, we can afford to spend a few, $100,000 or even $1 million if it, you think it will drastically benefit the department in both collecting statistics and then also, technology just advanced even in fighting fire sometimes.
So you bring up a very good point and a very good question that you will see in our budget this upcoming year.
Fantastic.
We have just moved to we've moved platforms. We moved to a new fire reporting system, a new staffing and payroll system, and I have firefighters that are trying to put these systems together that are not IT experts. Okay. IT attempts to help us, but because of their staffing levels, they can't do it. And the technology in the fire service and what we're going to, like our counterparts in public safety behind me in the police department who have 2 people that work for them that strictly do their IT stuff for their computers and in the units and stuff. We don't have anybody dedicated to that, and that's taking away from uniformed personnel. So we know how hard it is to get positions in the budget. Within the last budget year, you all helped us, and we were able to increase some of our software applications, but that technology continues to grow, and as it grows, there's a lot more that goes along with it, a lot of upkeep, and we're working on that. So I can tell you in the upcoming budget, you will see some requests with a position to manage those programs for us, and that's in conjunction with our IT department. Brian Packman, the director, knows that that's coming forward. He supports it. We've been in talk with him, and I can let Chief Powell tell you a little more about it, but I know that they support it. It's pretty passionate to both of these people to my right and left that we need somebody to help us with this because we just don't have the technology. And we're trying. They're trying, and we've got some chief officers to down to firefighter level that all have expertise, but it's taken away from the jobs they're supposed to be doing every day, and it's taking a toll.
Do you want the actual employee, or do you want it contracted out?
It would be a contract position that would be able to take care of not only the hardware and the software, but the programs themselves.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it would all be part of a whole package.
And then my second question, the fireboat. Have you bought the boat?
The fireboat is on order.
Okay.
it's on order, but it's going to take up to 18 months to build.
Okay,
So that process has moved forward.
thank you.
Now, we appreciate the support with that.
Two things I want to mention. Number one, it can't be overlooked, the devastating fires that were in California, and just so we're prepared for whatever happens. And I know the terrain that we have is totally different from California, but just we want to be confident that we're prepared for any kind of major issue that should arise here. That's number one. And number two, my understanding is that we sent over a diver over to DC today to assist with the tragedy that occurred last night. Is that correct?
So that is a correct statement. We did get a request last night from Emergency Management around 12 o'clock last night that came from DC's Emergency Management Agency, who had requested marine resources from Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. So Annapolis does not have a standalone dive team. We are part of the Anne Arundel County dive team, which runs out of the Annapolis Next Station that we share with the county. I had talked to Chief Powell, and we had agreed that our divers would go with them if they were deployed. They were put on standby early morning hours. Actually, around 10 o'clock last night, they were put on standby. They weren't deployed until this morning. We did have resources there with them all day today, and there was actually a plan for additional team to go tonight, but they've backed off on that currently as they're reevaluating how they're going to continue to assess that situation. But yes, that's part of the program we have. It's part of us utilizing resources from throughout the region. I can also tell you that we had a tragic loss in Montgomery County about a week and a half ago, where they lost a firefighter on a mutual aid fire in Prince George's County. That firefighter lived in Anne Arundel County. The Annapolis Fire Department actually provided units to go to Montgomery County and staff their stations while they grieved in their process, and were able to lay our fellow firefighter to have his funeral. And we have those partnerships throughout. As for being prepared, I can tell you we're as prepared as we can be. We train all the time. Those fires in California are devastating, because while they have wildland fires, those wildland fires went through some cities that are not used to wildland fires. We talked a little bit earlier about the downtown district. We know that one fire, because our buildings are so close together, can spread to another. We know that wind-driven fires cause us problems. We have had major wind-driven fires coming off of the bay that really affect the firefighting operations, but we continue to train for that. We'll do our best, and we will utilize our mutual aid partners to handle any situation that comes up.
Great. The other thing I want to mention, I would suggest, because I heard two sets of news stories today, and they named all the partners that were part of the team that went over to DC, and Annapolis wasn't one of them. So we might want to get a press release out to let people know that we were part of that as well. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, yeah, ours is we are part of the Anne Arundel County team, so we're included in that, but we'll make sure that people understand
I
that
think
we
people need
did
to know
assist.
that we respond to things beyond the four walls of Annapolis.
Oh, well, that's evident every day as people see our units going up and down Route 50, Route 2, Route 97, so that's very common.
Yes.
But we we can't really do it without our mutual aid partners, and our mutual aid partners rely on us all the time. But any call, any given day, you're going to see the United States Naval Academy, which is Naval District Washington Fire Department, Annapolis, and Anne Arundel County working hand in hand. And as the deputy said earlier, we've had units responding to Queen Anne's County recently. We assisted Montgomery County, and we'll continue to do that.
I like to hear it on the news, especially if it's a national story.
Understand.
I think our name should be mentioned.
Understand.
It's extremely important. Thank you so much for everything that you do. You have another question?
I do. Just a very quick comment and a question in one. How are you all so successful at recruiting? Because I see so many of my classmates doing fire-related stuff. It's awesome. I mean, people that graduated before me, people that graduated in the same class as me, people that graduated after me are working with Anne Arundel and Annapolis, and another friend of mine, I think, just was, I think they were sworn in recently. I don't know. What are you doing in the community that says, hey, come work with us and be a part of community public safety?
So I believe it's the employees that work for us that promote our department. We have a diverse group of recruiters, and it's just a part-time gig for them because they're full-time jobs, firefighter, paramedics, but they get out there too. It's hard for us because when we hire, we only hire 2 to 3 people at a time. So there's a lot of people. It's a very great job. We'll tell you it's the best job in the world, and that people see us out there, and I think that our people just promoting the department. I can tell you, and I'm sure that our firefighters and other people would say that, their salaries, everybody would like higher salaries, but that we are competitive with our surrounding jurisdictions. And when we're competing for these people, we're competing with very large jurisdictions. We're competing with Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, the large jurisdictions around us, and we've been very successful in filling our positions because I can tell you they have recruit fire schools going on now, and it's hard to get qualified people that want to do the job. Now, you've got to want to do it, though. You've got to be able to want to go into burning buildings, climb ladders, and it's not for everybody. And sometimes we have people that find that out as they're going through fire school. But I attribute it to the people that work for us because they promote our department, and they know we have an excellent department to work for. We're sort of too big to be small, but too small to be big type of department. But the call volume that we have, the responsibilities we have in the city of Annapolis, and I've told the council, because it's hard because of our size, population, and the size the city is, but you can't really find a city fire department out there that has to deal with what we deal with every day with being the state capital, with having the Naval Academy here. It's just, Annapolis is such a great place to be, but we bring a lot of people in for the boat shows, for Navy football games. It's just, it's a great place to work, and I think that it shows. And we don't have the turnover, and I'm proud of that, and I like to be able to say it, but we haven't had the major turnover some of the other jurisdictions have had. And I think it's because when people do come to work for us, they know we have a great place and they're part of our family.
Yeah, y'all do a fantastic job, and it makes me happy. Like I said, that it seems like a community department, and I think that's reflected in how you respond to our communities and how you engage with our communities as well. So thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you again so much. All right. And we're going to move on to ID 3525. Our Annapolis Police Department.
I promised 8:30.
No, because you asked a lot of questions.
Baby, I got a hot
So
I got a hot date.
don't be perturbed by Alderman Gay.
Me and Caitlin gotta be a tsunami, right, Caitlin?
I'm not going nowhere.
Good evening. I'm doing well. Everybody's fresh and ready to roll?
Well, we're ready to roll.
Your mic is not on.
There you go.
We're not going to rush you because we haven't had a meeting in several months. And so,
Well, if it,
and Alderman Gay had quite a few questions.
yes, ma'am. And if it pleases you, Madam Chair, first I'd like to give an overview of the things that we've done in 2024. And I know
Absolutely.
the concentration is going to be in Ward 1. Then the things that I can't answer, I'll defer to my command staff.
Do you have a PowerPoint?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Can you introduce your staff?
Yes, I will. Yes, ma'am. I'll start to my far right, and that's Captain Amy Miguez.
The prettiest one at the table?
Commander, yes, ma'am. Commander of Administrative Services. And to my immediate right is Captain Lamar Howard, and he's our Operations Commander. I'll have him speak on a few things tonight. And to my left is, of course, everybody knows the Deputy Chief, Stan Branford. And then to his immediate left is our new Public Information Officer that I'd like to introduce to everybody, and that's Cortland Jackson. And in full disclosure, he's not my son. I would be happy to have him as my son. Of course, this handsome young man, but I don't want the Capitol calling me tomorrow and ask me if I hired my family member. So Same last name, though, so we're really happy to have him. And he comes with just the kind of experience that we need. First of all, I think he'll connect real nicely with young people. And we're going to ask him to do more than just reporting on crime. He's going to do a whole array of things, tell the Annapolis police story the way I've been wanting and the mayor asked me to do for a number of years. So we're really happy to have him. I want to thank Chief Romali and Director Simmons. When we were searching for a PIO, they were very instrumental in assisting me because we are going to approach this a little bit differently as a public safety team. As a matter of fact, I think Chief Romali, if he's still here, he has committed to have him to work side by side with his captain, and so it's still a work in progress. As we speak now, we're sending him to a number of training before we put him out. I think he did his first daily report yesterday, this morning. So we're going to try to bring him in the right way and make sure that he gets a nice foundation before.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, put him in the hot seat. So I think I've accounted for everybody. And I'd just like to start off by saying I think I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish in 2024. Of course, the nature of what we do puts us, we have to confront many challenges, both internally and externally. But I think at the end of the year, the PowerPoint will show that a lot of good things has happened in the Annapolis Police Department from January 1st, 2024 up until New Year's Eve, December 31st of 2024. And we're hoping to expand on our successes in the year 2025, this year. So also, I like to mention while I'm talking about personnel, in a few weeks we'll be bringing on board 2 new command staff members. One is Guy Thacker, currently a colonel in Baltimore City. He's joining the team. He has 32 years of experience, and he's currently commander of the SWAT team and responsible for a lot of citywide initiatives in Baltimore. And then we're bringing in Lakeisha Blue. She's going to assume many of the duties that the former professional standards manager, Rhonda McCoy, was responsible for, but she's going to concentrate on internal affairs and the administrative charging committee and the police accountability board. So she's going to and work with legal, work with the Curry Berger, Attorney Curry Berger, and help with some of the legal issues centered around what we do and the disciplinary process to help prepare for trial boards, et cetera. And so we're looking forward to having them to join the team. Also, I'd like to take this moment to give a quick update on Kalia. I'm extremely proud of the work, and I will bring them back before the council in the immediate future to talk about some of the things that we've done. They've done a very good job in updating the policy to make sure that the policies are congruent to the standards, and they've done a wonderful job to provide Kalia the proofs. I think 2 weeks ago, we had an on-site visit, and that went very well. Kalia sent a commissioner, or an assessor, I should say, to Annapolis, and he interviewed some of our personnel and looked at some of our systems, and they were very pleased with what they saw. So I'm really hopeful that come August the 3rd through the 6th, I think, or the 6th through the 9th of this year, we'll be in Little Rock, Arkansas to receive our credentials, stating that we are full participants again. I hope that we'll be back into compliance before then, but they have a national conference when they present your certificates, and that's not until August. I think it starts on the 6th of August, and the conference runs from the 6th through the 9th. So I'll be in attendance along with my staff. And like I said, I'll bring Kayla Ziegler, who is our advocate. She works with the Police Accountability Board as a community advocate, and she also works with the CALEA standards, and she's really enjoying it and doing a good job. Also, Officer Melanie Williamson is working with her, along with Sergeant Hernandez, Tanya Hernandez, doing inspections. And also, and then I can't forget him, Lieutenant Acting Captain Hill O'Herlihy. They're doing it under his leadership and under his direction. So I'm really happy about the job. Thanks, Deputy, that Hill O'Herlihy is doing to get us back into compliance. Good
Looking forward to that, Chief. Looking forward to that.
Yes, ma'am. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I've been very hands-on, as a matter of fact. Today, I gave them direction, and we rewrote the mission statement to make it more relative. Our goals and our objectives are congruent to our mission statement, and those are the kind of little things that I've identified that I know CALEA will expect from us, and that it read very well, and we're excited to get that back into compliance. I want to thank Carrie Berger as well, because everything that we do, we generally give it to her to review and look at it to make sure that the language is professional and meet the standards of what assessors expect. So I'm very, very excited at our progress with CALEA.
Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I have a question on CALEA. Just because I wanted clarity on, I personally don't believe we're missing out on anything too much while, this accreditation issue is being resolved. I'm looking here, and it's not all, I'm on their website, the gold standard in public safety. We're not the only department in Maryland that's not in CALEA, and so it isn't a travesty that we're not involved in this.
No, sir, it's not. And as
I just want clarity on that for the public.
Yes, sir. I mean, nobody's taken into account, and that's what I've been trying to express for a long time now. The challenges were immense. The challenges that COVID presented. Many police chiefs, when I went down to Montgomery, Alabama, we weren't the only one. Chiefs were just like me. They had to prioritize. And when you have upticks in crime, I put everybody in Eastport, to deal with that. So, and that's real. I stick to that because it's the truth. And so you have to prioritize. So I'm glad you brought that point up, Alderman Gay, because the reason why we're not in it, it's not unusual. Many agencies have had to reevaluate. Now, what we have done, though, is now we have people dedicated to CALEA. Every day they come to work, they're dedicated to CALEA. So we didn't have that before. We had one person doing it, and it was just too much. Now we have 3, and we have the right people doing it with the kind of education and the background and the writing skills to get us back into compliance. So,
my last question on this: how much do we pay once we are accredited and we're enrolled in the programming? How much does the city pay them to be involved in this and take advantage of their resources?
I may have to get back to you, but I want to say around $5,000, I think. Yeah, but it's somewhere around that. It's not hundreds of thousands. It's an annual fee. It's around $5,000. But don't hold me to that exact figure. That's an estimate, and I'll get back to you with that. And so we're really happy with that. And then I'm sorry, sir. I don't want. Was there anything else with CALEA? Okay. And then I would like to talk about 2 more things before we really turn it over to the rest of the presentation. The University of Maryland study is in finally. We're still reviewing it. I'm not prepared to discuss everything about it because I'm still reading it, but it's about a 60.
That's the workload study, Chief.
The workload study, and it's about a 60-page document. It has some interesting things in it, but I want to read it again and then have an opportunity to discuss it with my entire command staff, and we'll do that very soon. And once we do that, then we'll be prepared to come before the council and talk about the recommendations. But we're not even prepared tonight to talk about it because the report just came to us last week, the final copy. They sent us a rough draft before the Christmas holiday of what it would look like, but now we got the official final report, I don't know, inside of 10, 12 days ago.
Alderman Huntley, that's a report that we requested the University of Maryland's conducting to see if our staffing levels are appropriate, basically within the police department.
Yes, and Captain Miguez just gave me the exact amount, Alderman Gay, and I wasn't too far, $4,600, $4,600. So I knew it was somewhere around that. And that's what we pay annually to be.
One thing, Alderman Huntley, too, that was a $80,000 study, I do believe.
$85,000.
$85,000. Annapolis United paid for that study.
Yes, and you paid for by Annapolis United. Thank you again. I think it's a good report. I've read parts of it. You know, I did my books when I was in college. I read the final chapter first. Now I'm moving backwards and to find out what they ultimately recommended. Then I'm now looking at their rationale and the study itself. So we'll be able to speak to that very soon with my entire command staff. Everybody sitting at this table will take part in the discussions once we get the report read. And then we have the JOINS program up, and that's the acronym for Juvenile Offenders in Need of Supervision. It's a diversion program. I think that Tola talked about it a little bit today. It's up and running. Michael is the head of it, and then we're going to have everybody who can chip in. But we met with Department of Juvenile Services, and they've agreed to finance some programs involving juveniles that has the ability to be diverted. Of course, all crimes can't be diverted. That's up to a prosecutor and the juvenile master and the judges. We have to consult with the judicial system, but the eligible offenses that can be diverted, Department of Juvenile Services, Michael brought them to my office 2 days ago. We had a nice conversation about my vision for intervention of juveniles who have the potential to become adult offenders if there's no intervention. So we're excited about the possibility of getting these young men and young women into programs to divert them from the criminal justice systems as adults. And so that's fully up and running now, and all we have to do is grow it out. And lastly, of course, one of the hot topics as we enter this very new second administration, presidential administration, is of course Immigration Customs Enforcement. And we're revamping the policy. Kerry has agreed to help us to make sure that the officers fully understand, as it's written as a part of policy, we're going from a training bulletin to a general order to mandate that officers do certain things, what they can and cannot do constitutionally. She's going to evaluate it for us once we get it compiled to make sure that it's tight, and so we're going to talk about things like detainers and when you can hold them legally and when you can't, and what our role should be as a local law enforcement agency. So that's also one of the projects that's forthcoming. And then, of course, we want it to be consistent with the values that we, as much as we can legally, with the values espoused by the mayor and the council, in terms of how we engage, immigrant populations. So we're really looking forward to that. I think it'll be a good policy, a very fair policy, things like not asking them their status and all that kind of, we just want to make sure they stay safe in Annapolis, and if they're victims of crime, we just focus on that, Now, what the federal government does, then that's a whole different conversation, and that's where we're going to write the policy, and Kerry has graciously agreed to make sure that the policy can withstand, legal scrutiny, and it has everything in there sufficiently that we need to move forward with the policy. So that's forthcoming. I'll let Captain Howard talk about Ward 1, but Ward 1 is, the stats are very interesting. We had a conversation just today in anticipation of this meeting, and we talked about the challenges historically when I first got here. When I say historically, I'm talking about 2019, not when Amy was here, 20 years, 30 years ago, but when I got here.
30 years on.
We're talking about when, since I got here, things like Acme and venues like that were problematic. But I'll let Captain Howard talk about that. I know you had one homicide in Ward 1, and I just want to say that real quick, and you can elaborate on that. But that one homicide, if my memory serves me correct, is the incident that developed in Baltimore City. A young man, 47-year-old male, was abducted, and he was brought to Spa Road and shot. But there was an investigation that we did with Baltimore City. The actual incident was Baltimore City related. We had to take the homicide because, first of all, he was found here, and then we eventually got evidence that he was actually shot here. But it had nothing to do with he wasn't a resident of the city. And the reason why he was killed had nothing to do with Annapolis. He was just literally dragged out of his home in Baltimore City, the southern part of Baltimore City, the northern part of Anne Arundel County, in the Brooklyn, Cherry Hill area. And he was dragged up to Annapolis, and because they thought that would be a nice place, one of the conspirators in that crime said, well, I know a spot where we can off him, and that's what happened. So it wasn't a random act of violence against an Annapolitan or anybody visiting here. So I just want to, and that was in your ward. And then we had things like rapes. We didn't have any rapes that were random. If you see, 3 were domestic and 1 was known to the victim. Very few of them are by strangers. With those kind of rapes, we take the investigation and carry it as far as we can in terms of evidence, and then let a prosecutor decide whether they're going to move forward based on the facts that we find. But as you can see from the slide, they were known. 3 were domestic, and the victim knew her assailant in the other one. Aggravated assaults, 26 of those 26, 6 were domestics. Domestic violence, some type of relationship. We had another, 12 on the street? Yes, sir. Another 8 in the bar, and then we had 5s in residence. And the question was asked a few minutes ago when the fire department was here, the uptick in incidents and responses to Ward 1. Well, your ward is the most challenging, and yours too, ma'am, because you have both residential areas and businesses. You have a lot of venues. And so when you have communities like that, neighborhoods like that, you're going to always experience the most overall crime. This is this index crime we're talking here. We're not even talking about like miscellaneous stuff like destruction of property and things like that. We're just talking about index crime, your most serious crimes, homicides, rapes, robberies, and things of that nature. But you're going to experience that because your ward is the hub where people meet. You have the Naval Academy. You have so many venues down there. And so you're going to experience it for that reason. But I'm happy to say from a police standpoint, most of that crime we mitigate. In other words, it's solved. It doesn't go unaddressed. And so I'll move quickly. You had residents, and then robbery. In the robbery category, you had 1 domestic. You had 7 with hands, and 1 with a knife. I'm sorry. And then if you see it says Ward 1 incident counts, crimes against persons, those are your 2 categories, crimes against persons and crimes against property. To my left, your left, those are the crimes against property. I'll move on real quickly to crimes against property, and those are the burglaries, had 15 of them. And then you can see, it makes my point, residential, business, office, and most of them with no force. Then you get down to the thefts. That's the highest number of thefts. Thefts are always the highest number. Shoplifting, and from buildings, from motor vehicles, pickpocketing, taking motor vehicle parts, and purse snatchings. And then the last one is our biggest challenge too, with motor vehicle theft, had 13. And if there's anything that the captain can add to that in terms of arrest, 3 suspects were known to the victim, 9 were unlocked. 2 were locked and recovered, and then 2 more were unlocked and not recovered. So if you can add to that, Captain, I appreciate it.
Good evening. So I really wanted to provide a snapshot of a more a true picture of the crime that's occurring in Ward 1. When you look at some of the other slides, it just shows the raw number of incidents. But when you zero down and you look at, for instance, with the thefts, the shopliftings, like the chief said, it's increasingly difficult to police shoplifting. You know, you have someone going to a convenience store and they steal a candy bar. The porch pirates. I mean, we've put out information to Annapolitans ad nauseum, especially when it comes to the thefts from residents, the thefts from vehicles. We put it out on all of our social media platforms. We've even put the VMS boards at the major thoroughfares on Forest Drive as well as Rowell Boulevard. When you leave your car at night, lock it, remove all of the valuables, but still, you know, it's still something that we combat on a day-to-day basis. And I get it, people are busy, and sometimes they may be absent-minded. They're moving so fast that they forget. Like, we just had one the other day where, you know, a young lady left almost a $5,000 bag inside of a car. So we're trying to think outside of the box to have the residents be more accountable to preventing themselves from being victimized from people coming in and stealing their things. But it's a challenge, but we work at it every day, along with our PIO putting it out, and as well as, again, we'll continue to utilize the VMS boards to get that information out so that we can make sure that, you know, people are protecting themselves from becoming victims.
And for 100 years, we used the Uniform Crime Reports, commonly referred to as the UCR, and it had 8 index crimes. We recently, not we, Annapolis, but the entire United States of America, because it's run, the clearinghouse is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We went to NABRS, and NABRS is the acronym for National Incident-Based Reporting System. The point that I'm making, in NABRS as well as the UCR, they categorize crimes, certain crimes. They'll tell you whether police, if it was reasonable for police to be able to prevent it. And thefts are one of the categories that they make it explicitly known. When you leave your purse on the front seat, if you don't lock your doors and those kind of things, there's no way you can expect police to prevent those. The crimes that we're charged with are those offenses that we should have done by our presence. In other words, some of those crimes, I had this conversation with the captain today, some of those crimes, you know, we just missed it because we, you know, the old adage, we can't be everywhere and we don't have all C&I, but technically by our presence patrolling the street, when something's taken off of President Street, or a car stolen right there on Madison Street, then we should have been able to prevent that, theoretically. You know, it depends on a whole lot of other variables too, because sometimes we're at a homicide scene or a shooting scene and all of our resources are dealing with that. And of course, most crimes are crimes of opportunities. That's why we try very hard with my command staff to make sure that we have an even spread throughout the city. That one of my first concerns when something happens, a major incident happens, like Paddington Place did in June of 2023. When I get to the scene, I'm thinking about the rest of the city. I don't want criminals to think that because we are there mitigating the mass shooting, that our Achilles heel is all the rest of the wards. And so that's something that we're still working at. When we have those kind of incidents, we got to make sure that there's coverage in those areas. We don't want to leave them vulnerable. And so,
go right ahead.
So 2 questions. One, am I reading this right, that other than this homicide, there was no gun crime in Ward 1?
That's correct.
That's excellent. Wow, that's really wonderful work.
And I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I just want to emphasize too that homicide, that happened in Baltimore City. It is broader than that, so we wouldn't have known that was coming.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How do I, so the crime that I hear about the most often as a complaint is theft from vehicles, and that tracks with it being a very common one. And I'll tell you, I have forgotten and left my car unlocked and had it gone through. Now, I also don't keep anything valuable in my car. But I guess the question I was wondering about this is, I have a perception that is more common in Ward 1 because we have a relatively wealthy populace. We have folks who I think maybe show up, and also we have a more of a density of it. So put it this way, if I was going to go and try door handles, I'd go try it in Ward 1. Is that borne out by the data? Do you know that tends to be a problem more in my ward, or is that just my perception?
So when you look at the city in its totality, it's like a shotgun blast. It's all over. Alderwoman Pernell Charles, our chair, her ward experiences a lot of thefts as well. So I don't think it's more specific to any particular ward. I just think it's just a crime of opportunity. When you have individuals coming through that may be in the throes of addiction, if they see an area to where they can make a quick lick and to satisfy that itch on that back that night, that's where they're going. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a crime of opportunity. No ward is more picked on than any other. But when you go through a community and the rationale is that the doors are going to be left unlocked and people are going to leave valuables inside of the car, then they're going to return and return and return.
But I will add that your ward, you're right, you have a lot of wealth down there, and they have to be vigilant in terms of not just thefts, but street crime. It's rare in Annapolis, but every now and again you'll get a predator. Not a person who takes advantage of an opportunity, breach an unlocked door or an unlocked home, and they see the person left and they say, oh, they left their door unlocked, and go in. That's bad, but what's even worse, to your point, what has to be underscored in your ward is that you have a lot of wealth there, and it's not a secret. All over the state of Maryland, there's a lot of wealthy people in Annapolis, and so they have to be vigilant when they walk the streets at night, be aware of their surroundings, not just thefts, but robberies and other violent offenses.
One last question for you on this pocket picking, and I recognize really not many on there, but that's the kind of thing that I think potentially drives away tourism, and people feel like that's a concern. Is there any trend you can tell me about in that? How does that typically happen? Were all three of those one guy? Any additional information you can share on that in particular?
So I would say for the pickpocketing, a lot of that activity happens around the bars when you have people that are inebriated and not aware of their surroundings. Generally speaking, experiencing pickpocketing in communities where you don't have establishments where they're selling alcohol. The majority of the pickpocketing incidents that we see here in Annapolis is happening around the bar scenes.
Yeah, gone are the days with the old bunco squads, and I'm embarrassed to say that I'm probably the only one sitting here that remember the old bunco squads. And with bunco squads were professional pickpockets and scammers. One day would operate in pairs, and then one guy would bump you, and his buddy would take you, or ladies too, because ladies were better at it than men, and that's not a DEI thing, that's a fact. The attractive woman would come up and distract the man while her boyfriend would take your wallet. But here's why I believe, and I think a lot of scholars would agree with me, the reason why we don't have a bunco squad, nobody has a bunco squad anymore. We're laughing because the last bunco squads probably existed 25 years ago, because everything is digital now. People don't carry cash in their valuables. Everything's on phones now. And so that kind of diminished the needs. And to Captain Howard's point, the ones that we have are these people who have too much to drink and they're drunk and they're easy targets. You can just pretty much take their wallet out and leave them a note that they were drunk and you took it and put it back in there. They would never know the difference because that's how inebriated they are. And you notice the number is low. So we don't have a need for, in the old days, we used to follow them around and everybody looked suspicious after a while. They would put us downtown Baltimore, and you look, and after a while, everybody looks like a criminal, because all you do is people watch 8 hours a day, and so we don't have a need for that. And because most tourists now, their money's digital.
Thank you all so much.
This should be good.
Do you want to go to?
Yeah, we can go to.
Can we go back in?
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
That one.
Yeah, violent crime reduction, and I'll again have the captain speak on it, but if you look at the numbers, in 2024, we had 3 homicides. One was the one we just talked about in your ward where the gentleman was abducted. The other 2 are tied to the same suspect, and that was the one from Georgetown Road and Bywater and Forest Drive at the Safeway. Down from the previous year, that was 2024, down from 2023. 2023, the numbers are high, but 3 of those homicides were a result of the mass shooting on Paddington Place. That account for 3 of those homicides, and the other 6 were separated, but you can see it's been reduced significantly. Overall crime, I was so happy when Captain Howard showed me those numbers, down 67% in all categories. Contact shootings, we went from 22 down to 8, and then shots fired, was cut literally in half. In 2023, 36, and then the report count is down to 18. And I'll just say this, and you can elaborate on this if you don't mind, Captain. What we do that a lot of jurisdictions don't do, we go after everybody. We try to use the CCTV and the license plate readers. Some jurisdictions are so busy that if nobody gets struck, then it's just unfortunate. But we go after everybody, and we do our very best to prosecute them for that type of reckless endangerment. So whether you strike somebody or not, whether it's a contact shooting or not, if we can prosecute you, we'll go after you with the full force of the law, and we'll treat you just as aggressively had it been a contact shooting. If you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so it's no secret to everyone in this room in 2023. We were very challenged with handgun violence, and pretty much every marginalized community in the city of Annapolis. Under the chief's guidance and the deputy chief's guidance and the on-deck, all-hands-on-deck approach, being able to do some different things to add some adrenaline to the crime fight, we were able to cut into some of the numbers that we were experiencing in 2023 to what we're seeing here today. Granted, it's success, but we have a long way to go. But the most telling factor for me on that slide is the shots fired, going from 18 to 36, because we all know when you have individuals pulling up to communities and they're leaving 50, 60, 70, 80 shell casings per event, each one of those projectiles that is fired from a weapon is a potential victim. So going after and targeting the individuals that were more likely to use a handgun in the commission of a crime, we knew that we had to do that. And we had a quick vehicle to do that with the open warrants that we had in the city. Utilizing that open warrant list, some of the individuals that we needed to touch, especially in the Harbor House community, they had open warrants, and oh, by the way, when we finally caught up with them and we gave them a pair of bracelets to put on, they had handguns. Mm-hmm. So by doing that, and by them being already prohibited, we just talked to our federal partners and asked them to adopt the cases, to send a strong message to everyone else. If you're prohibited and you're willing to use a handgun in the city of Annapolis, we're going to have your case adopted by the feds, and we're going to send you to Minot, South Dakota, or somewhere where your loved ones can't come visit you. And that's the message that we're trying to send. We're trying to be fair, but we want everyone to know that this is not a game that we're playing when it comes to this handgun violence.
And the beauty in all this, because there's so many people, nice people in Harbor House that live in Eastport Terrace, make no mistake about it, most are nice people, but it's those few who think that they can come and act, wantonly and recklessly in those communities. And when we do those kind of initiatives after, our operations units have made those kind of arrests and dismantled some of this violence, the residents are ecstatic. The people who live there every day are always happy because it lessens the probability that one of their loved ones will be struck by an errant bullet that wasn't meant for them or their loved one. So I just wanted to add that to what Captain Howard had to say. The residents appreciate it as well. And that's just as much a part of our community policing initiative. Now that they trust us and we have a better rapport, they're always happy to see us come out there and get those guns off the street. I don't think you can go to
Alderman Gay?
I have just a quick question. And obviously, I'm a fan of the work and everything. And particularly with as you mentioned, going from 36 to 18 shots fired, because we did have a point in Eastport where we were having severe drive-bys, it seems like. My first question is, who's doing cold cases now? Because I remember you were doing a very, very good job at that.
Yes, it's still active. We got a couple of them. We're just waiting for prosecution. We still have cold case.
Is Captain Howard still in charge?
No, Detective Will Noel. Well, you can talk about that. Detective Will Noel that's all he does is look at cold cases and interact with the state's attorney. And it's a couple of them that we want to take, we think are ready. We're just waiting on the Office of the State's Attorney to move forward.
And I think that's good, because that was just a caveat, is how's the relationship with the state's attorney? I know at some point your team had been making the arrests, but they weren't really staying, obviously, at the detention center or whatever, and so it was just a revolving door.
Right.
And so glad to hear that that's kind of fixed.
Yes, sir, and that hasn't gone anywhere. We're just as passionate. I'm just as passionate about cold case now as I was when we first announced it.
Thank you.
I'm going to add something to that, Alderman Gay. So ultimately, cold case, what you want to do is be able to solve in closed cases. It's a lot more to that, and the biggest part of that was communicating with family members. Oftentimes, before the cold case was put into place, you would hear from citizens and other groups saying that loved ones have not heard about their loved one's case. We put in a system where each year on the anniversary of that particular case, they get a call from a detective and say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. Is there any other information you guys want to share with us? If we have anything, we'll share with you. We have invited families down to review those cases, because oftentimes what we did see in the past is that families had this perception that nothing was done on the case, and they were surprised that much more work was done than they perceived it to be. And we were also able to get information from families that we did not have. And most of the time, that came from information that they learned from the streets, from friends after years of talking to them. So it's a lot more than solving cases. It's making sure families know that the police department have not forgotten their loved one, and we're still in touch with those cases.
Just one other, and I'll save the rest for the end.
Okay.
Why doesn't the map that the Office of Emergency Management showed us with drug use, activity, overdoses, correlate to the map of arrest for drug-related offenses or
that's actually a good question. That's an excellent. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, because if the majority of and particularly fatal overdoses are happening in Ward 2, why isn't there a connection to arrest in Ward 2? Obviously, that doesn't mean that it's being sold there, but you would think that there is some correlation there. And also, similarly to, I think on the non-fatal overdoses page, the ward that led, at least I didn't see on the other one that they were incomparable in arrest as well. So when you see, when you get data from Office of Emergency Management, and they say, okay, we had 18 overdoses in Ward 3, what does the department do in response to that to try to, curb the, Because clearly, in my mind, I would think like, okay, either there's a like bad batch in this particular area, or there's just an increase in overall dealing there.
And we have to do a better job in capturing that. That's actually an excellent point. And I think that theoretically speaking now, just theoretically speaking, because we do seize large quantities of fentanyl, we have done it with our federal initiatives, we've done it with the SEAT team. And I think sometimes we've been focused on, and rightfully so, concentrating our efforts on overdoses as a health problem, and all of the information goes towards the health aspect of it, that we, the capturing the data and making the correlation between how much fentanyl is on the street versus how many people that we held accountable for distributed and got lost. But I commit to you today that we'll capture that data, because we do have it. We just have to capture that data, and in a future presentation, we'll be able to make that a slide. But I think it's an excellent question.
Greatly appreciate it.
I just don't have, to be honest with you, I didn't come prepared to answer it.
And that's no problem. I really appreciate it.
And we seize large quantities of fentanyl all the time. We have we showcase that when it occurs. But you're right, that fentanyl is either potentially going to be distributed in one of the wards, your ward probably most prominently, or they've already done it. They've come in here to give it to somebody to put it out on the street, because everything's laced with fentanyl. Pills, marijuana, heroin, cocaine, everything's laced with fentanyl. So to your point, we need to start capturing that data. I know that maybe 2 years ago, we got enough fentanyl that they said they could probably kill 1 million people, and they weren't exaggerating. We seized it right here in Annapolis, enough fentanyl that had it been put out on the street and integrated with the drugs, it probably could have killed 1 million people. That's 1/8 of the population in Maryland. And so, to your point, we need to make sure that that's congruent. If we're going to come and talk about overdoses and how overdoses have gone down, I think that there's a direct correlation, they're correlated between the number of seizures when we do get those seizures and how it impacts the reduction in overdoses. So excellent question.
And from an investigative standpoint, officers are trained even on overdoses. The best way that we can try to trace back where these drugs are coming from is from phone numbers. So officers are trained when they go to an overdose, if there's property there that we can get with the phone numbers, we get those phones, we can dump those phones. Our federal partners will actually take those phone numbers and dump them into a database, and that way we can get a connection between, what's the connection between these overdoses? Is it the same number that these guys are calling to get that supply? So we're able to do something on the investigative side of that.
Good to know. I didn't know that.
Seizures. I think it segues nicely into firearm seizures. We had 2 initiatives in 2024, and they both were very successful. They were organized by the deputy chief and by Captain Howard, and both netted. These were voluntary. When I first got here, just to give you a real quick backstory, I was criticized when I first became police chief because I was asked to do a gun buyback. I'm still not in favor of a gun buyback, because experience tells me, in 43 years or almost 43 years of experience in law enforcement, people who don't give up their guns for buybacks, by and large, some do obviously, but by and large, they give the guns that they don't want. And would change my perception. I can tell you the news station was on, WBAL, a lady gave an interview one time and said, I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to take the $300 that they're going to give me for the gun, and I'm just going to upgrade. I'm not getting rid of my gun. And so, and they aired it. And I said, see, and I know if she did it, then who knows how many other people do it. So it doesn't reduce violence. I said what I am in favor of is that we do a promotion, a public safety announcement saying, look, many of you have guns in your house, they get out on the street. You know, you had them for protection, now you're getting up in age, they belong to your spouse, they're no longer here. You know, your grandchildren come over, you don't want them to get a hold of it, and we saw what happened in Baltimore the other day. The 9-year-old, 10-year-old died as a result of getting a gun laying around by a grandmother. So we coordinated a gun turn-in. I went on the air. Like I said, Captain Howard put it together along with the deputy chief, and I went on the air and promoted it. And the first one we had, we got 53 handguns and a hand grenade, a World War II grapefruit hand grenade. Got a Desert Eagle handgun. For those of you who don't know, the Desert Eagle revolver is that big one that Clint Eastwood carries in his Dirty Harry movies. Beautiful gun. They look brand new. Those guns go in the market for about $4,000. Annapolitans turned all of those in, came in and turned those guns in, and plus the hand grenade. The second one that we had one several months later, and we, a couple of months ago, 6,000 rounds of ammunition was turned in, and we had another, was it 19 guns? Something like that, 19 handguns and rifles, and 6,000 rounds of ammunition was turned in. And so you look at it, 69 firearms were turned in 2024, and several thousand rounds of ammunition. So it was very successful, and we're looking forward to doing them periodically. Both of them exceeded our expectations in terms of what was turned in. We were pleasantly surprised. And so we'll be doing those from time to time.
When they come to the police station, how do you do this? Because obviously, I'm sure you're not like just roll up to the police station with a gun.
Well, we tell people, you know, just bring them in. We want you to render them safe. I said on TV, if you don't know how to, please, if you don't know how to render it safe, call us. We'll come to your home. No questions asked. You just hand us the gun. We're not going to interrogate you. It's a gun turn-in, so no questions asked. I don't care whether you give me a name or anything. Just turn the gun in. And I said, please, please, please don't attempt yourself to render the gun safe. We have plenty of people who can come to your home or meet you somewhere and render the gun safe, law enforcement officials. So they just come in and they turn them in.
And does the bomb squad get involved with a grenade?
Yes, you can talk about that.
So lucky the grenade, it didn't have a fuse. It was a dud, so to speak, for the military guys that are in here. But nevertheless, someone had they had a grenade.
An ordnance in their house, and we didn't know that it wasn't loaded when they brought it in. You see what I'm saying? If we would thank God it was unloaded. And when our Captain Howard notified the bomb squad or Romali and them. It doesn't sound very professional, Romali and them, but the gun, the bomb squad.
Romali and the boys.
Yeah, Romali and the boys, but they assisted us in that to make sure it was safe.
And to know these firearms are separate from the seizures that were conducted by patrol and by our seat teams. So this is just strictly a turn-in event.
Right.
Totally separate from the firearms that were seized during arrest procedures throughout the city.
The other thing, I watched the last one, the second one that you had, how it operated, and people drove up in their cars. Your officers went in the trunk of the car, got it, and boxed it and cataloged it and everything. It was a very well-organized operation that I witnessed. So thank you for that. For the listening audience, SEAT team is?
Yes, ma'am.
SEAT acronym means?
Special Enforcement Action Team.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Special Enforcement Action Team. And part of this program is that we need the media to take pictures, because this is a transparency thing. We tell people to turn in the guns. We want to show them what they turned in. You know, we don't want that to be a mystery. Every Annapolitan has a right. If you have a gun turn-in, chief, what are you going to do with those guns? Of course, we destroy them, unless there's some special circumstances that would dictate otherwise. And then if it is a special circumstance that would dictate otherwise, we get it to the proper authorities, should the gun need to be preserved. But most of them, we just melt down, take to a furnace and have them melted down. And we want the public to lay it out for the public to come in and see what we've seized.
Okay.
We can go to future goals. Again, this kind of ties into my opening remarks about the staff study and things of that nature. Future goals to increase patrol staffing from 10 officers per squad to 12 officers, to create more prevention-oriented teams. I've always been frustrated at the reactionary nature of police work. Police work is, when you're preserving an individual's freedoms and rights as the Constitution mandates and as it should, if you're not careful, you'll just go in reactionary mode. We want to create more citizen-friendly crime prevention programs, and we're going to use SEAT to do that, the Special Enforcement Action Team to, and sometimes it's just the presence. Having intelligence, as my deputy chief always talk about, intelligence-based policing. If the intelligence dictates that there's a high probability, working on the law of probabilities, that something could potentially occur based on, I don't have an example of the data, but it could be any data that would lead a reasonable and prudent person to believe that if something's not done, if there's not law enforcement intervention, that a crime could occur. So we're going to work on that. We're not fully prepared to say exactly what that looks like, but that's our goal for one of our future goals, to create strategic plans to address crime prevention in a very meaningful way. Of course, we're going to continue our collaboration prayerfully with federal partners, and examples of that are the United States Marshal Service, the FBI, alcohol, tobacco, firearms and explosives, and et cetera. We've enjoyed a very, very good relationship with them, and they've helped us out immensely. We're going to have, as I stated just now, additional gun turn-in events. Identify more Annapolitan candidates for reentry programs, increase community service events. We want to really expand the PAL program. I'm happy to report that the PAL program is up and running. We have several events. We have volleyball. Of course, we have the boxing now. We have chess. And it's spread out all over the city, and we hope to expand it to more programs. I may have even missed a program. We're going to increase traffic safety staffing. Captain Miguez has showed me a video today that really broke my heart, a fatal accident. Of course, we had a number of those fatal accidents. And it doesn't matter whether it's pedestrian error. We just want to make sure that the word gets out that you have to do certain things to keep yourself safe. And we had I think a 70-year-old gentleman was, our latest one was struck and killed, and I saw the video for the first time, and it'll break your heart. It was really sad to watch. So it really brings the point home that he and his dog were both killed as a result of that, and so we need to decrease. And we have the people that in the knowledge base. We have Kevin Kraus and we have Dukowski, and they're very skilled at that in the investigation. So we're going to work with them to help develop some traffic safety programs. And of course, with everything, I'll just say that I'm always welcoming more staffing. If I could get the money for more staffing, I just throw that in there to increase everything that we've talked about.
No shame in your game. Huh?
No shame in my game, man. With all due respect, no shame in my game. And then we had K-9 unit decreasing due to retirements. Of course, the long-time K-9 guy, he's like a K-9 legend here. Sergeant Tucker. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know him very well. Sergeant Tucker. He retired. We have. We do have, and we talk about.
I'm sorry. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. He retired, and he spent many years. He's literally an expert, a K-9 expert in terms of training and handling the dogs and procurement. He knew it all. I mean, he was a really a fixture in that area. Not only that, he was just a smart, very well versed policeman, period. He was a dynamite police, and we're going to miss him. He retired. But we do have our first woman K-9 officer, right? She's the very first, is she? Venacata?
First one I've seen since I've been here.
Yeah, first one, yeah. I think she's among the first. It may have been one before. I'm not sure. I think she is the first. And she recently had a name change. I have to learn her. Abate? Mm-hmm. Okay, I have to learn her new name, her surname. But the K-9 deployments in 2024 netted over $23,000 recovered and seized for forfeiture, the dog sniffing techniques in terms of drugs. And then at the last bullet that we're always proud of, if you look at that last bullet, it says that as a result of the dogs doing an effective job, there were 0 bites in 2024. So no citizen was bitten by a dog in the execution of their duty. Re-entry.
Chief, can I ask you a question about that goals one? Obviously, you're the expert, but I also like to bring forward what I hear from folks. The two sort of interventions that I hear requested the most are, one, more police out and about, which goes to your point about staffing. But the other one that a lot of folks ask me about is, what are we doing to have more cameras, more CCTV, more ability to be able to catch people once they do something? And that wasn't a goal that I saw on here. So I'd just love to hear your reaction to how that fits into your general community-based policing model, and also what, if anything, the department's already doing on that front.
Yes, there's a number of things have been done, and I think Captain she can speak to that, but I try to be an influencer. The biggest misnomer is that we were in the camera business. That's primarily Public Works. We give them advice based on where incidents occur and where we think cameras need to be, and then there's a whole lot of other things that Captain Miguez can explain about the camera situation.
So cameras are actually in IT's budget. They fall under IT as far as the expansion. There's been a major upgrade of the cameras that's been ongoing to get them on fiber and to get the older units replaced, and that's been very successful. We have 3 camera monitors currently that work, and our coverage is very good. Where we could expand is in situations where we can get access to more private cameras. So county is having a press conference next week about their real-time information center. They have a system in that center.
Next week, Tuesday.
Called Fusus, which gives them the opportunity to offer basically a dongle to a private business. They plug it in, and the police department can pull up their cameras in their center. I've seen it at work in the center. They have some 7-Elevens on board and things like that. They get a call for shoplifting or a clerk struggling with someone in the store. They can pull it up real time in this center and view it and let their officers know what's going on. So it's that I see as the future, and I'm sure that if you continue here, you'll be hearing about that in the city. We'll definitely be pitching some budget items that go along with that. But as far as the cameras go, IT has the budget for that. And like the chief said, we work with them very closely. Downtown, if you want to come to the department again and see the cameras that are downtown, be happy to show you.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Just to follow up on that, what is your all's philosophy around how much we want folks to know where cameras are? Do we want to make them more prominent? Do we want people to know where there are cameras, or do we kind of want people to think there might be cameras anywhere?
My personal philosophy is that the more that you know, it prevents victimization. I'd rather prevent victimization than react to it.
Sure.
An example is that if a big camera is shining down on somebody, before they pull that gun out, and commit that shooting. I'd rather for that camera to be a deterrent.
Yeah.
And that person lives to see another day than have a camera hidden and the person doesn't believe it. We may capture it. We may be able to identify them, but we have a person that may be dead or shot. So I'd rather for the cameras to be prominent, you know.
In downtown for the terrorists.
Right, and yeah, especially in your ward, because again, Main Street and downtown where that's what terrorists looks for. They look for those type of that type of exactly. You know, they look like, and this is an old colonial town, and some people may interpret it as Mayberry, as Captain Miguel this mentioned, and that's not the joke. They look at it as very laid back because of the beauty and the charm of the colonial feel. Sometimes people who mean harm will come here and think it's an easy, a soft target. So what cameras do is to let you know that we're watching you. And I don't mean it to be in case Big Brother's watching. I know it's not a popular term, but we want them to know that we're watching you. And not only are we watching you, we're capturing you. And if we're watching you and capturing you, we're going to come after you. But to answer your question, I'm not for a bunch of hidden cameras. If you have some hidden, to augment the ones that are visible, that's nice, but I want the problem areas, people to look as soon as they come. Maybe I better go to another jurisdiction.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the explanation, and I'll just say definitely would look forward to seeing that budget item around those dongles.
And it's a couple of them I want to go through real quickly in the interest of time. Our community outreach hasn't changed very much. I know it's getting late. We're still doing most of the things like, here's one I want to stop at a minute. Back in August, I met with the family. I didn't know much about the story, the John R. Elliott Hero Campaign for designated drivers, and we had a RAP, the foundation, the police foundation, supported it, and we went into the yard at the United States Naval Academy. We all went there when his dad presented Annapolis Police Department with the award of the certificate of appreciation. And what that is that it's a program where people can call in, and if they had too much to drink, then we make sure that they get home safe before they get behind the wheel of a car. And just a real quick backstory, he was an ensign who had recently graduated from the United States Naval Academy. He was on his way to see his in-laws when he was struck and killed by a drunk driver, a very brilliant student, and who knows what he would have been. He was 22 years old at the time. A very tragic story, so it was very heartwarming to see his dad talk about his son in such a loving way. And the Navy, this happened like 25 years ago, and they still mourn his loss as if it happened yesterday. And that just shows you the impact. Very emotional. We were all there, and very emotional ceremony. So that's one of the new initiatives. It's called HERO. And it was paid through a shout out to Judy Buddensick and the Police Foundation. And of course, we talked about traffic safety, and then we talked about professional standards, and pretty much the same thing that Rhonda was doing. I talked about that earlier in my opening statement, so I won't elaborate that unless anybody has any questions. And then our training budget, if you want to make a few comments about that. I know you're not training, but you know about the budget.
Yeah, so currently with half plus a month, half the fiscal year done, we're less than half left for training. So we've been able to send a lot of people to a lot of good training, but their training's expensive, especially if it's not offered locally, which some isn't. Some of the things we've done to try and help expand our training options are to really try and partner with Anne Arundel County. When they have someone coming in for training, try and piggyback on them. In fact, Lieutenant Kraus this week, he went to the Naval Academy for a leadership class. Right. So things like that help reduce cost, but with the increased requirements from the commission, and obviously just us wanting to make sure we have the best trained officers, it's definitely, we have an increase in the budget for that as well, so.
And if you can go real quickly, thank you,
No
Captain.
problem.
If you go to Internal Affairs.
Yep.
Internal Affairs, real quickly, internal affairs complaints are down. Real quickly to note that unlike a lot of jurisdictions, the vast majority of our complaints are self-generated. It's not people from the outside coming in to complain about police service. We do a masterful job of catching misconduct ourselves, and it's generated from within. It's almost rare here lately that somebody from the outside is complaining about our services, and I pray that that continues. Use of force is down, just about every category. And then I gave two definitions up there, the Administrative Charging Committee. This is all things that we're mandated to do by law now. The Maryland General Assembly, of course, in the aftermath of George Floyd, enacted, it was signed into law in 2021, the Police Accountability Act of 2021. The two main components are the Administrative Charging Committee, the ACC, and those are incidents that are investigated by the APD, and once the facts are found, then it's forwarded to the ACC, and then they have the authority to actually mete out discipline. My only involvement in that is I have two things that I can do. I can tell them I disagree, but I can't lower the punishment. I can only increase it. If they recommend 10 days, I can say 15 days, or it depends. Yeah, within the range, and then I can terminate for an offense. Is that correct? If there
are certain convictions,
right,
you can terminate without having to.
I can up it, yeah, and I'm Russian, so it's more involved. But in a general sense, is that safe to say, Counselor? In a general sense, I can up it, but I can't lower it, and it's more involved than that. I admit that, but I'm trying to get through the slides. And then the second one is the administrative hearing boards, of course, trial boards. Officers for the last 50 years, since 1974, were always entitled to trial boards. So the Police Accountability Act of 2021 modified that process. It didn't totally do away with all the components of the old system. Officers still have due process if they are non-probationary. In other words, they're entitled, if an accusation is made and they don't agree with the Administrative Charging Committee, they can always pray a hearing board. And then we have the other types of offensive, if they internally generated, in other words, it doesn't involve the public, I still have the full authority to discipline for things that happen internally. They show up, work late, they lose their radio. As long as it doesn't involve the public, then it stays with me, and that's the difference. Of course, the goals is to institute a mediation program to assist in resolving. Some complaints can be resolved through mediation. If the officer agrees and the citizen agrees, then a whole lot of things don't have to go through the official system. It could be mitigated. And then we also want to enhance efficiency by ensuring cases move through the chain of command review process expeditiously. We're working on that. We were criticized for that, I say unfairly, but we were criticized. And then we want to update policies using new/enhanced internal procedures for handling cases involving a member of the public, and continue to maintain transparency and professionalism in the internal affairs process. And then administrative services, I'll let the captain say a few words about that. That's her bailiwick, so to speak.
So in 2024, at the very beginning, I moved to head administrative services. At that point, the training unit and CLIA accreditation unit was moved to professional standards as division, and inspections and audits was created to go under professional standards. So in 2024, our sworn staffing, we had 16 sworn hires with 8 lateral officers and 8 entry-level officers. So lateral officers are officers that we can, they don't have to go through a police academy. They're already certified police officers. They undergo training with us, and then they can be on the street more quickly than an entry-level. Entry-level training is usually 8 to 9 months, and then they have additional training at the department when they come. So we had 10 total sworn that left in 2024. This was before the very end when I made this slide. So we had 6 resign or retire, or they were retirees at the end of 2024. So we're actually down to 110 right now, where we'll be back at 111 in March. And then civilian, we also hired 21 people for civilian staffing. All our crossing guard positions were filled, and that was due to the increase that was approved by the city council. So we're very grateful. And all our camera monitor positions were filled at one point, though we've had 1 opening since then. We also had 11 civilians leave employment during that time. And just to put that in perspective, I have 1 person doing recruiting and hiring for all those positions. They all come to me, and then they all go to the chief. We have help doing some of the background investigations that need to be done. Otherwise, he would not be able to do all that work by himself. We do have some support from HR, but the bulk of the work is done at the department, and it's incredibly detailed, and it is a lot.
Thank you, Kathy. And just to add on, you may know his name. The mayor sworn in the new lateral today, and he's from the area. I was very happy to see that young man who's from this area. And he said to me this afternoon that he has for years worked with young people in Harbor House, Eastport Terrace, Robinwood, all throughout Eastport. He and his friend work with young people, so we're looking forward to having him. He's a sworn officer now, and we'll introduce him in the very near future. He sounds like a Robert Horn. I don't know that yet, but he sounds like a Robert Horn. Prayerfully, he is. And I think I'll stop right there. Overall, I'm very pleased with what we've done. We're going to continue with the help of everybody here and the community to keep striving to be the best police department around. And I think that we've moved the notch in 2024 a little closer to achieving that goal. Hopefully in the future, I'll be able to come before you and really sell the University of Maryland study. I do know that it states that the 3.2 per 1,000 residents needs to be looked at because they acknowledged that in their investigation that we have so much more that the community would like to see us do, and it requires personnel beyond that formula, that 3.2 per 1,000 or the 124 authorized officers that we currently have. So hopefully we can have a lively discussion, very effective discussion that will generate ideas from both the council, the mayor's office, and the community about how we can enhance the efficiency, overall efficiency and effectiveness of the Annapolis Police Department. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. A couple of things I want to mention. Number one, your grants administrative manager, hold that thought. I want to, because that is a finance question. Number two, Coffee with a Cop started at Biddy and Bowes in December, has moved on to Leeward in Ward 8. So we've gone from Ward 1 to Ward 8. The other thing is congratulations to Deputy Chief Branford for his recent award from the Martin Luther King Committee. Congratulations. And the other thing is the 65th anniversary that's coming up in February of your first African-American police officer. But let's start with the grants administrator and manager positions, because that's an opportunity to get possibly millions of dollars, hopefully, by having those two positions.
And I think it's going to be, Madam Chair, a force multiplier. In other words, if we articulate this University of Maryland study, it'll automatically say, well, how are you going to pay for this? And then that's where the grant manager and the grant administrator comes in, because with those two working, and when I first got here back 5 years ago, Alderman Gay had mentioned that. I never forgot that. Why aren't we paying for more? depending on everything that we need from the city coffers, it's not enough. And he was right. And I had said that at a council hearing. And so that's what this would do. This would give us the ability to compete with those larger grants to augment our budget and pay for a lot of things that ordinarily would enhance our budget by millions of dollars. So I'm hoping that when we present that, that'll be the force multiplier to have a discussion about the really support me getting or the APD, I shouldn't say me, but the APD getting a grant writer and a grant manager.
Right, because you need the administrator, because that's extremely important.
You need the administrator to make sure we're in compliance with the grants, and that whatever the grants, when you're talking millions of dollars, first of all, most of them are evidence-based now. In the old days, they would give you the money and they could care less. If you didn't spend it right, just don't come back for us more. Now, the requirements are more stringent. And the elephant in the room tonight is we don't know what the future is going to be.
That is true.
With funding under this current upcoming administration at the federal level. So we have to be prepared that if we get a $10 million grant, that we manage it effectively so we don't get into trouble. And that's where the two come in. It creates checks and balances, and to make sure if we are audited or we have to report out on the results of whatever grants given to us, we have to have everything, a metrics to use as to how we're going to manage those grants and how we're going to measure our success against whatever the grants are. I know I'm talking in generalities, but that's the importance of having a grant manager and a grant writer or administrator. And I'm just hoping that could happen and that the Finance Committee would support that idea, because of course everything would have to be approved by them.
Exactly. Okay. And your 65th anniversary, 2 sentences on that.
Yes, we're getting ready to celebrate the 65th in for Black History Month. My mistress of ceremony, is that the right word?
Yes.
My mistress of ceremony is going to be Captain Miguez, and I'm going to give the keynote address chronicling the 65th anniversary of the first African-American officer hired in the city of Annapolis. The first officer was hired in 1960, 65 years ago. Next month, and so we'll be commemorating that historic day that Annapolis saw the first African-American police officer. And there'll be other events that's going to go along with that. We're going to have the names of all the African-American police officers currently from 2000 to the present put on the plaque. We had one 25 years ago to commemorate the 45th anniversary, and now we're going to have 25 years later, we're going to celebrate the 65th anniversary.
Alderman Gay?
First Baptist Church is the venue.
February 25th, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
At
Tuesday.
6 o'clock at First Baptist. Okay.
Change to 26.
26, February 26.
Okay, get
I'm sorry.
rain white, because I told you tonight that.
Well, we did.
Okay.
I'm going to go quickly, and 2 of them I want you to give me an answer in writing if possible. The UMD study, I pray to God it's not the same study that we had a vicious debate over when they were talking about, oh God, I'm blanking on the exact word now, but when they were using technology. Okay, all right, thank you.
No, not at all.
Thank you. That was the very first thing I was thinking from
No, sir, not at all.
2022. Okay. Your comments regarding ICE and working with the assistant city attorney. I am concerned about that. I've spoke with the city attorney, the city manager, the chief of staff, and I'm not happy with the way that anybody is responding. Obviously, I know there's a lot of fear and concern as it relates to what the federal government may do, and I know that there were some threats apparently from the ICE director to local officials, but I feel like we do have a responsibility to those citizens. And so I hope when you all get together and craft your policy or you give legal advice, that we also keep in mind that, those are kids, these are families. We have a very large Hispanic population, and particularly in my ward, I mentioned on Monday night, the Tyler Heights area, the Tyler Heights corridor, 98% of the students at that school are Hispanic. That entire community surrounding it on Tyler Ave and Janice Drive, Janwa, is primarily Hispanic. So I'm very concerned about that, and I'd be curious to see how we respond.
We're going to respond, Alderman, in a way consistent with law. And I want my officers to know that it's not our role to enforce federal law. It's just not. But we can't get in the way of it either. So Annapolitans, I'm going to make it clear, they don't have anything to fear from us. I'm not saying they don't have anything to fear from immigration, but I'm only concerned, as long as I'm police chief, I'm only concerned with victimization that occurs here in the city. In other words, to give you an example, we're not going to ask immigration status. And I'm sorry if that offends people, but if we come up, unless it's related to a crime, if it's not related to a crime, then it's none of my business with the integrated. If they were robbed, they were robbed, and we'll take the report and act accordingly. And so I think where the lines are going to be blurred, because we are law enforcement, and I don't know how to reconcile that. We have a new PIO, but the message, I think all departments have to, and most departments approach it that way. In the old days, people applauded local law enforcement for asking for immigration status, then getting on the phone and calling the feds and say, we got one for you. That's not, those fears you don't have to worry about.
And that's my point. And that's, that's all I would like.
We're going to do our job professionally, and we're not going to bring any shame or embarrassment to the city of Annapolis. And look, I promise you that. We're not going to do any shame. Now, I can't sit here and anybody to say that people are not going to be deported from the city, but it's not going to be because
but we will not be actively involved in handing over families.
Right.
Thank you.
So I don't want that to be a misunderstanding. Well, Chief, you said that you're going to act professionally. Yeah, if somebody gets deported, it's not because of us.
I greatly appreciate the clarity on that. Two last points. The parent accountability, I'd like an email on that, on how you, as a chief, instruct the officers to handle that, or how your administrative staff instructs staff to handle that. I mentioned, there was a 16-year-old that shot himself, a parent's self-inflicted gunshot wound last week. I'm not understanding, and it could have happened, maybe I just don't know, and it wasn't mentioned on the thread, why the adult in the house was not immediately arrested.
Well, I think that I don't know that much about the investigation, but I think they want to get all the facts together first. The adult was since arrested.
Okay.
And charged with reckless endangerment, leaving the gun and it is a charge for that, leaving the gun where a child could get it, and they were able to determine, at least from what the information I got, that she was responsible directly for leaving that. She shouldn't have had a gun in the first place.
And I'll let you save the rest so that we're not discussing open stuff. But
Okay.
I just in general on parent accountability, I'm interested in that. Lastly, excited that you're here, and look forward to working with you and just trying to figure out a way to effectively communicate with our community. I hope that we can, touch base offline at some point. And then also, I'm thrilled that the new hire numbers, you have 37% African Americans, 31% white, and 18.5% Hispanics. And I don't know what's a better reflection of our city. And you made that promise to have a diverse police department when you first got here. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, sir. You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Huntley. Assistant City Attorney Berger, anything from you?
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Evans, anything from you?
Nope, I appreciate everything y'all do.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate that.
Instead.
I know. All right, we've got one piece of legislation, which is your property and contraband disposal. I don't think we need much discussion because we've talked about it. We do have one amendment, so that's on O-28-24, Police Department Property and Contraband Disposal. Alderman Gay, have you had an opportunity to take a look at the amendment by Alderman Savage?
I'm pulling the amendment up right now, but I'm moving the legislation. You want a second?
I want a second.
Okay.
I think we do.
All in favor?
No.
Oh.
This is y'all, they're like, are we done? No, this is you all's legislation, so she left you there in case everybody has questions about the legislation.
Do you have questions, Captain McGinn?
No, we're happy with the legislation.
Thank you. We're happy that you're happy.
I'm supportive of the amendment. My quick question, when we did the budget last year and we asked about this, there were, you sent us like a list of very, like a lot of restrictions on, and so is this rectifying that, or is this something completely different? Remember, I think I was trying to use money out of the forfeit.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. Those are two separate things.
Okay, all right,
It's
cool.
not related to asset forfeiture in any way.
I thought for some reason that. All right, and I'll second or move the amendment.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now on to the legislation itself. O 2824, do I hear a motion to adopt that with the amendment?
So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposition do I hear. Anything else for the good of the order? All is well. At this time, we adjourn the meeting at 9:43 PM. Thank you all so much.
Awesome.